created everything. Look what a powerful being you are. You did these things, but now you're in a human body, you forget the power you have.
What you do is what the whole universe is doing at the place you call here and now. You are something the whole universe is doing in the same way that a wave is something that the whole ocean is doing.
You're doing it.
Doing what?
Using your imagination.
Welcome to Metamystics, where you don't know what you don't know. My name's Jonathan.
I'm Sean.
And today we have ConsciouslyErin. You may know her. I know her specifically from TikTok with all the Schumann resonance stuff. And you're the only one that I follow. You're the only one that we follow whenever it comes to the Schumann resonance. And I got to be honest with you. I probably watched over 100 of your videos, and I still don't have a clue about what exactly the Schumann resonance even is.
You're not alone. That's so awesome that we're here. We can talk about that. That's fantastic.
Hey guys, before we get too deep into this episode, we do want to remind you that if you're listening to this on YouTube, we are only putting out one show a week on YouTube. We've gotten way too many strikes and we're just not trying to play the game. If you want to be able to listen to every single episode, then just go tune in over on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to your podcasts at. But if you want to listen to this show completely commercial free, come over to patreon.com/metamystics. That link's down in the show notes below. We have a $3.33 tier per month that will give you access to all of the shows days in advance, completely commercial free, all the video, and you'll be able to slide into our DMs any time. Maybe you have a suggestion for a show, or you just want to reach out and say hi. We'd appreciate the stop. So and also another thing about Patreon is if you go over there, we have another tier that's called the Wonder Wednesday tier. You'll get everything that I just mentioned, plus you'll be able to tune in with us live every Wednesday night for the live show. Sometimes we have guests, sometimes we just bring awesome topics, sometimes we just want to shoot the shit with the one out there. And so if you're interested in that, there's a tier for that as well. And if you find yourself really liking Patreon, or maybe you just want to dip your feet in the water, we have a free week that you can sign up. And I mean, on the 6th day, you quit it, no money taken out. Maybe it's not for you, but either way, you tried it out. Come on and check it out. And if you do decide that you like it, sign up for an entire year. You'll get 3 months off. So just want to throw this out there. If you're listening on YouTube, or maybe you're listening on the Cult of Conspiracy, and you want to be able to listen to more than just one episode a week of Metamystics, come and check us out over on our platform. That is the Metamystics on Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening to the show, or come and check out Patreon. So back to the show. So yeah, I mean, I understand that it has something to do with like the Earth's frequency of sorts. Is it basically the frequency of the Earth, and it's constantly going through changes because its own frequency is changing, or is it because of other things that are going on out in the universe that are affecting the Earth?
Yes, and right. So
Okay.
the Schumann resonance is a set of measurements, right? And it's measuring the electromagnetic activity in the ionosphere around the Earth, which is like a cushion around the Earth that's conductive in nature. So what happens is lightning strikes, CMEs from the sun, tectonic plate movement, volcanoes, natural things that produce electricity kind of get reverberated in this ionosphere, right? And the Schumann, what that is, it's named that because the scientist's name was Dr. Schumann. He discovered that this has a sort of resonance around the planet, and it can have effects on, if we have a lot of energy coming in from a CME, it can correlate to earthquakes, weather pattern changes, and stuff like that. So he started to observe these things. Where I come in with that is I just kind of took it a step further, and I'm not the first one to do it, but I just, as a scientist, when I went through my awakening experience, especially being in medicine, I was not satisfied when someone said, well, it just is this way. And I thought, well, that's just dumb. Nothing is just that way. Like, there's a reason for everything. And I want to understand why, because I don't believe that it's anything magic. It's just science that we don't yet have words for.
Right.
And for me, this all started, like, I was having lunch with a friend of mine who was a meteorology student, who's ironically also named Erin. And he and I are sitting there, and I was talking kind of to myself because he was on his phone or something. And I was like, man, I feel like my mood is just so strange and my body has all these feelings. And he looked at me and he goes, have you ever heard of the Schumann? And I go, no, what's that? And he goes, well, I'm learning about it in school, in meteorology school, and it used blah, 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 blah. He goes, humans are just giant conductors. So maybe there's something to that. And I was like, that's really interesting. So then after the conversation, I went to the website that he gave me, which is from Russia. And I think it's important to note that the different monitoring stations around the world are not all looking at the same frequency bands. Some are ELF, some are ULF, some are VLF. So you have to, when you're comparing the different frequencies, you have to make sure you're comparing apples to apples for everyone out there who's doing this. I started with the Tomsk graph because that's the one he referred me to. That's the one that's most active. And for an entire year, I just did what I do as a scientist. I collected data. I looked at the graph and I wrote down how I felt versus what the graph said. And after a year, I took that into the university where I was working and plugged it into like an AI statistical analyst, had some big acronym, and it spit out a bell curve. Well, in science, if there's a bell curve, that means there's correlation, but correlation doesn't mean causation. So as a scientist, for me, the next step would be, okay, I'm going to put this out for peer review. Where am I going to submit a one-person study based on this? No one is going to do that, right? So I was sitting in my living room one day and I had a brick and mortar wellness studio, and I was like, TikTok's kind of my peers, so why don't I just ask them? And so when I made my first video, it was genuinely an effort to see, am I crazy? Is there something here? Like, what is this? And it has turned into this huge thing. But when you think about it, it really is logical in its nature, right? This energy comes from the sun, it hits the ionosphere, and like a bell, it spreads out through the ionosphere, right? Different levels of frequency reach us. We are, 90 some odd percent water, which is a conductor. And then your heart and your brain are electrical in nature. So then you have this energy come in. How is it not logical to think there's some kind of effect there, right? And then if you even take that a step farther, you as a human being produce something called a biosphere, right? This is measurable by science. Some people call it an aura. That's the magic word for it. But what it is a biosphere. And it's the byproduct of the energy produced by your cells in your body. This is influenced by what you're focused on, what you're consuming, the energy around you, all this stuff. So when we receive this energy, instead of just not affecting us, it affects us on a biosphere level, right? The biosphere then can affect us on a physical level, and it goes in both directions. Does that make sense? So to kind of break that down just a little bit more, right? You think of your cell, the movement of energy produces heat. That heat expands out, and it is collective with all the cells in your body. This produces your biosphere. This produces your sort of aura, right? When you walk into a room and you feel that feeling of, oh, these people just had an argument, you're picking up on the dip in their biosphere because it no longer resonates where you are. You feel the difference. You feel the distance, right?
Right.
The same thing happens when we're receiving energy from the sun in the other direction. It comes in, it hits the biosphere. The biosphere adjusts itself, which then affects your cells. And then you have release of energy, integration of energy, and everything kind of from there.
Wow.
That makes sense. Hopefully that made sense. I don't like to, I tend to be long-winded, so stop me.
No, please be. I love it.
Absolutely. And it doesn't surprise me, that you would have trouble finding, a peer audience, to do a peer review when so many people tend to separate ourselves from nature.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Certain animals, they know when to migrate or, which ways north just based off of electromagnetic forces that we can't really necessarily feel because our senses aren't totally tapped into that. But I think that's where we go wrong, is completely disconnecting ourselves from nature itself.
What's funny too? So we did a pantheism, like explaining what pantheism is on one of the TikTok clips. It's like our most popular TikTok clip of all time. It just went awesome, like big for us anyway. And it's still to this day, people are liking it and commenting on it and stuff like that. So it's really cool that people are like resonating with that a little bit, But there was somebody that wrote, Well, nature is not perfect, so pantheism can't be true. And I'm like, that's such a weird sentiment, I would say, because what is your definition of perfect then? You know, like
Right.
what is perfect? I mean,
Well, you wouldn't want your pantheism to be perfect now, would you? Because perfect would mean it was complete. You'd need it to be able to evolve, correct?
Right.
So that's a flawed argument.
Wow.
oh, I agree. I mean, he had Catholic in his name, so there's that. Um, love everybody, but yeah, but it's super interesting about this whole Schumann resonance thing. And I will say that there's been a lot of people. At least I know that there's a lot of people that really tune in to what's going on with the Schumann resonance whenever there's a crazy event. Maybe
Right.
there's a UFO sighting, or maybe
Right.
there's a hurricane or a tsunami or an earthquake, and it's always picks up on the Schumann resonance, which I find very strange. But I think what was one of the biggest ones, like, and I don't know if I'm sure you can go back and like look at way older charts too, right?
You might be able to. I cannot access archived charts. The site is through Russia. So
Oh,
I just have the same access that anybody else would. So I can't go back through their archives. I can go back through my videos maybe and see the pictures that I have, but I can't go back through their archive.
well, I was just going to bring up about how, and I don't know if this is fake news or not, but whenever COVID really started coming on in like March of 2020, when people
Oh,
really
yeah,
started
the
getting
weird
crazy about it.
pattern.
Yeah, and there was like weird patterns within the Schumann. And I was like, that's really strange that it even
Yeah.
seems to resonate with it, because it's the Schumann resonance. It's not just the Earth. It's the Earth plus all its inhabitants.
Right.
Right. So
Well,
collectively.
yes. However, you have to remember that the equipment is aimed and measuring in the ionosphere. So while we as humanity can have an effect on the graph, it tends to be very low level and sort of background, because it would take a major amount of energy to create the big white spikes that we see. I mean, think about how much voltage is in a lightning strike or a CME, right? And that's what you're seeing on the white. So in order for humanity to affect the graph in that way, it would have to be a very concentrated, focused effort in one place. Not to say it doesn't happen. There are green, when you look at the graph, blue is like the background. That's homeostasis. That's when everything's in balance. The green horizontal bands that you see are the harmonics, and that's humanity. That's the noise we make. And you can see a striated pattern as the instrument rotates around to daytime and nighttime for the area that it's in, because people are awake or asleep, and it increases that noise or decreases that noise. I have seen myself one time, and I don't know the date, there was some kind of mass meditation that was led by like Joe Dispenza or something, someone well known, and it was a lot of people, and the graph had an anomaly that day. As a scientist, I cannot say that correlation and causation are the same. I can say it's very interesting that it happened at exactly the same time, and that warrants further investigation. But I'm unwilling to say this is what caused that, but I'm open to it, right? The other thing I will say is, since I started watching this, there have been studies published. You can actually go to PubMed now, and you can find at least 2 studies, peer-reviewed, published, saying this stuff affects us. They're just not being picked up by mainstream science yet, right? It's kind of, it's in its infant stages, just like acupuncture and energy medicine. As someone who used to teach in a medical school, I can tell you this stuff, they are slow moving with this stuff, and it's going to take a long time to get them to come forward, mainly because we have a lot of old white guys teaching medicine right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot to profit off of old systems.
There is, but the good news is the last year I was there, the incoming class of new doctors, in one of the lectures I was giving, I had so many students asking me questions like, when would it be appropriate to consider meditation versus medication? And I thought, wow, that's a great catchphrase, and somebody needs to do something with that, because I do believe that Eastern and Western medicine can work together, but I don't believe that the solution is throw a pill at your symptoms and say you're cured. That's not how it works. But I do understand that if you're suffering from something like depression, it is incredibly difficult to see beyond the black cloud that's over you. So you go to the doctor and you get the medication so you can see enough to do the work, to get over the issue, to work through your stuff and get off the medication. But because of the way our system is structured, like you said, it's a for-profit thing. There's more money to be made in keeping you sick than making you well. And you know, a lot of people, like I have friends that live in Australia, and people will argue with me all the time. They have centralized healthcare. They don't pay for their healthcare. And people want to argue with me, oh, they wait months and months. And I'm like, who told you that? Like, have you actually ever talked to somebody who's there? Because that's not what they tell me, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, if you want to have an elective surgery, you might have to wait a little bit. But if you need to have your appendix out, you're going to have your appendix out. You know what I mean? It's not like that.
Yeah,
And
it's
this
funny
is
how
where-
you know, people from our country know more about other people's countries than their own people. I
it's
hear
so
that all the time.
maddening.
It's the same thing with the Canadian healthcare system. People say the same exact thing as far as the Australian and all that. There should be a centralized you know, health system. Like, I mean, just make it Medicaid. You know, like I don't see a problem with that.
Exactly. But with the Schumann, kind of what this does is because it can affect you on a cellular physical level. If you can start to figure out how it affects you individually, it's like giving yourself a roadmap for the day. Not everyone feels or integrates or works with energy the same way I do. And a lot of that is because the big white energy you see on the graph is associated with theta brainwave state, right? This is meditative state. This is sleep state,
Interesting.
right? I, because of the nature of my job, am in and out of meditative state literally all day long. So when the energy hits, I get it right away. If you are busy in your daily life, you are nowhere near theta wave state. So the energy may not affect you in the moment. But what tends to happen is it will sort of settle in the best way I can describe it is like a pocket kind of around your biosphere, until they resonate at the same frequency and then they integrate, right? So when you lay down to go to sleep, when you go into meditation, that dissonance that you're feeling, that anxiousness, that well, I feel like I need to do something and I don't know what, that feeling, most people want to get up and go run a mile. Don't do that. Sit down and bring yourself into theta state and let the energy integrate into your system. The only reason you're feeling that is because it's the dissonance between the frequencies. That's all it is.
Oh,
Everything is energy. Absolutely everything is energy, down to the vibrating strings in the center of your atoms. So you just have to
100%.
figure out the frequency of it. That's it.
Oh my God. And that's something that, you know, we should have been taught that in school, how to meditate. Like, there's no reason we don't like, why did I just learn how to meditate for the first time whenever I was like 31? You know what I'm saying? Like, that
Because-
makes no sense.
That was
Because-
time out for us.
Yeah.
Like,
Right,
You go sit
right.
down.
Right. It was a punishment, right?
Yeah.
But because, and I don't know for sure if it was Carnegie, Rockefeller, Ford, one of those people, when they were building the American education system, he is very famously quoted as saying, I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. And so the education system was designed to create straight, narrow definitions and lines for people to go down like cattle, right? And part of that is all the throwing around the word normal, right? So what happens when you use the word normal? It's a form of subtle control. Because as a kid, you want nothing more in the world than to fit in and have friends. So when someone tells you you're other, you stop being other and you become normal and you become complacent and you become controlled, right? You start thinking the way they want.
Right.
People who are neurospicy, right? I'm ADHD. I'm late diagnosed autism, ADHD. And believe me, when I was diagnosed, it was like, duh. But you know, all my life, I'm like, what? I even have a son who's autistic. And when he was diagnosed, it's really funny because his therapist was going over things with me and he looked at me and he goes, you know, this tends to run in families. Have you ever gotten tested? And I was like, what? No, I don't need to be. I'm fine. He's like, I'm okay. You know, just all right. And then I didn't think about it again for another 15 years until I got tested.
Wow. You know what?
but-
I should probably get tested for that now that I think about it, because
There
there's something wrong with me for
so
sure.
many more people who are autistic and ADHD than you would ever imagine.
I think it's a
because you-
superpower, actually.
I personally believe it's a mechanism of evolution. And let me tell you why. Two sides of the same coin. Evolution always works in a balance, right?
Hmm.
So 100 years ago, when you think about how much sensory input the human being had to deal with, it was not nearly the amount that we have now. So here comes ADHD. What does ADHD do? It allows you to focus in multiple places at once, right? And if you learn to work with your ADHD, which is something I learned to do in my professional life at the university, it can make you immensely productive, but you have to learn to work with it and stop fighting it. Then on the other side of the coin, you have autism. Kids who have autism crave quiet, low. They don't want the bright lights. They don't want the flashes. They don't want anything. So they're the 180. They're the balance to the ADHD evolution. They're the quiet. They're the balance of things, because this is a universe based on duality. So you must have light, dark, hot, cold,
Wow.
ADHD,
The universe's
autism.
efforts in creating that, or maintaining rather the homeostasis. You
Right.
know what I mean? Trying to keep us
Exactly.
kind of in the middle, keep us from going too far to one side.
You know what's
Right.
funny, Sean, is that you're always saying, "Oh, I wouldn't want to be stuck even 5 minutes inside of your head," and I almost like you got me thinking now that like, am I a little tizzy or what? What's going on here? I
I
might
think you
be.
just have a super fast processor. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well,
Like you said, you're able to process so much information all
Well,
at one
right.
time.
because it feels like a job. It feels like you have to,
Right.
like, or else you're just gonna explode.
Right. But think about if you hadn't been trained to think that you have to fit down one narrow pathway, right? So, what was so freeing for me is when I was diagnosed with ADHD, I got that diagnosis first. I was in grad school. And the reason I got diagnosed is because I was literally losing my mind trying to sit there and read this incredibly boring material for my master's, right? So I go to my psychiatrist and I'm explaining to her, and she says, "Well, you do test very high for ADHD." And she goes, "Do you want a pill?" And I said, "Yes, let me try the pill." So I took the pill and it made me hyper focus.
Yeah.
Like I could not do anything else. I was so zoomed in, and I got a lot of work done on that one thing.
Tunnel
But I
vision.
Did not like the feeling. Did not like the feeling. 100% tunnel vision. So when I went back to her, she said, "Well, there is another way." And I said, "What other way?" She goes, "Well, when you go back to your office, I want you to get 3 monitors and put them on your desk. And I want you to have a different project on each of those monitors. And then get yourself a chair that either moves a lot or like a walking desk or something. And sit there. And when you get bored with this one, you work on this one. You get bored with this one, you work on this one." And that's what I did. And I became very rapidly the most productive person on my entire team. I got like 3 certifications in 6 months because I was like, because I didn't feel like I had to fit into what someone else wanted from me, right? And this definitely was a conversation with my boss where I explained to her what I was doing, and she was like, "Okay, if this is what you want to try, then you can try it. Here, we'll do it on a trial basis and all the stuff." Thankfully, I worked for someone who was open to that, but it paid off in dividends. I literally wrote. So I used to work at a medical school in Chicago Atlanta area and called Rosalind Franklin University. I worked in the healthcare stimulation department. Healthcare stimulation is a relatively new field. It's only been around basically since the 90s, but it's becoming, with technology, really, really important, right? I wrote the very first trainer's manual for the entire field of healthcare stimulation.
Wow.
While I was working on teaching classes, writing curriculum, getting my master's degree, and doing everything else, because I was given the freedom to work on things. And what happens when you want to go back to energy, momentum, flow, manifestation, when I was in that flow state, what happened? My channel opened up and I started to get all these ideas about, wow, we really need a training manual for this. We are teaching standardization without standardized training. That's lunacy, right? So I found a gap and filled the gap while I was working on other stuff. And that's what flow feels like. That's what manifestation feels like. Manifestation is not magic. Like everybody comes to me and they're like, "How do I manifest this?" And I'm like, "Stop doing that. Stop doing that right there."
Yeah, don't
That's
just
how
sit
you
on.
do
You
that.
can't be just sitting on your couch, saying that you want to live in a mansion one day and have a Ferrari and not do anything. Like
Right.
it
Faith
is.
requires action.
Yeah, and that's what even the religious people will say. It's like it's faith plus work. You
Yes.
have to have both. It's not you can't say stay in one place and expect, and there's weird things like if you look into magic and the occult and stuff like that, they'll say that Well, if you did the meditation and you carried out the ritual exactly as you should, and you were sitting there and you went into, your ritual space, and you did everything that you had to do to get a Lamborghini, if you did the ritual right, then you should walk outside and there should be a Lamborghini there. I'm like, that might be a step too far. That might be a step
Right.
too damn far.
There's something to be said about actually embodying, and I think that's what's happening. You are, during the ritual or whatever it is that you're doing with magic, and you're trying to bring up the energy of somebody that would have a Lamborghini, right? And then you have to actually embody that, and I think that's what
Yes.
it's doing for your subconscious mind. Really, is it's allowing you to believe that you can embody the person that does the things, that takes the opportunity,
Yes.
that makes the money, that gets the car.
Yeah, Sean, you're 100%. So I'm a big believer. I don't know if you know who Bashar is. I'm a big believer
Yep.
in what Bashar says. These are simply permission slips, mainly
Yep.
because we as humanity don't believe we are worthy,
Right.
right?
hmm
A lot of issue with clients and people who come talk to me is they have this overwhelming sense that they have to earn their connection to spirit. If I'm good enough, right, then I will be rewarded. This is a church thing. This is not a spiritual thing. And there's a big difference between church and the teachings of the religion, right? There's a wide gap there. Okay. Something people don't think about is the reason we have priests and clergy is because people couldn't fucking read. So you had to have someone read the book to you. It was not their job to interpret, it was their job to read. Then people learned how to read. And suddenly they didn't have any more money coming in. They didn't have any more power. So then they said, well, only I am special enough to understand what I'm reading. So
Yeah,
now
it's-
you must come to me for this.
And we actually recently covered that as well, as far as, the middleman essentially,
Yeah.
and actually about how that ties in, because we've been looking into a lot of the symbolism in certain tarot cards, right? And
Yes.
one of the cards that perfectly correlates with that is the Hierophant. The Hierophant is essentially a pope, but not connected to a religion, right?
Yes.
And so it started going into a little bit of the history as far as popes and priests and all that, pastors and whatnot. And basically they're seen, like, people always like look at like the Baphomet or figures like that where you have the two fingers up and the two fingers down. It's
Right.
essentially you're turning yourself into a conduit for connecting heaven and earth. Right?
Right.
And as if that's some kind of a bad symbol or something like that.
Right.
Meanwhile, you got the popes and the priests and the pastors and all these kind of people that are representing just that.
Right.
It's kind of silly. And so whenever you say you go up to a priest and you call him father, where that comes from is because that's like your spiritual
Because he's
connection
a
to the other
medium.
side. Right.
Because he's a medium.
So crazy.
He talks to an imaginary white guy in the sky and gives you messages
And
like a medium. Hello.
And people
You
are
know?
buying it, It's just
I mean, and the thing about, like, I heard someone say the other day, well, if manifestation is real, then why do good things happen to really bad people and really bad things happen to really good people? And that's a flawed argument as well, because the reason people who we perceive as bad, let's just say someone who does bad things, has good things happen to them, you perceive as good things, money usually is what it is because they are singularly focused and driven in that direction, and nothing gets in their way. Not you, not their family, not nobody. That's why that happens for them. That is what manifestation is. Manifestation is simply resonance. That's all it is. And you have to allow yourself to be the frequency of that which you want to resonate with. And I tell people all the time, every big physical manifestation you want casts a shadow. So if you want a house, right? Here's the house. In this shadow are all of your insecurities. I can't afford it. I won't be stable there. What if my wife leaves me? What if I can't cut the lawn? All of your insecurities are in there. So in order for you to reach the manifestation of the house, you have to walk through every single one of those shadows, because in order to resonate with the frequency you have assigned to that house, you have to get rid of all the stuff in the middle. Right. And people give up. That's where they give up. They say, it's too hard. I can't do it. No, it's not. Your fear is just getting the best of you. There's two main emotions in this world, fear and love. That's it. You have a choice every day which scale of that you choose, right? Just like every unhealed version is still inside of you. What healing looks like is you get to be in charge of which one comes forward today.
Oh man, and fear is so goddamn crippling. It
It
is
is.
crazy just how much it literally takes control of almost, I don't even say almost, every aspect of your life. It takes control of it, and it puts you into that like almost like animalistic defense mode kind
Yes.
of mentality, to where
Yes.
everything is scaring you because that's your mind's way of like preparing you for worst case scenario.
Right. Right.
You know,
I
and
mean,
it's
the ego has its purpose, right? The ego is not our enemy. It's there to help us. It's there to keep our physical body. I mean, it's there to say that's lying, bad idea. You know, okay, thank you, very helpful. But it hasn't evolved with us in the age that we've evolved into with technology and all this stuff. So one of the tools I tell people is when your fear starts to come up, ask yourself this question: is this a universal truth or is this a in the moment truth? Do I think I'm stupid because I'm genuinely stupid, or am I telling myself I'm stupid because I knocked the milk over? Like, use logic in your favor, right? This isn't magic. Use logic, right? When you say something like that'll never happen for me. Wait, is that universally true in every circumstance, or is it only true because right now you're struggling with something? And if you could get past that, then it could be true, right?
Well,
like
and-
that
and-
is a
This is the
tool.
reality you accept.
Yes.
Well, and what's crazy is that most of the time, you know, those things that are going on inside of our head, it's almost like we're punishing ourselves. Like literally, you think about it, nobody talks as much shit to you as you do. And yet,
Right.
if somebody says 100th of the things that we say to ourselves, we never want to talk to them ever again.
Right.
And it's just kind of crazy that we don't even, it's almost like a subconscious thing. It's like a comforting thing, almost as if we're trying to, you know, punish ourselves because we feel like we deserve it. I wonder where
it's
even
like
that came from.
preemptively striking, right? If I tell myself that I'm worthless, when you tell me I'm worthless, it won't hurt me. It's a preemptive type strike, right? And in psychology, there's been all these studies about this, and there's a name for it that I can't seem to remember at this moment. But everybody's thinking like this, but we all think we're the only one doing it. So when you go to the party in middle school and you're standing there in the corner, freak the fuck out because you think everybody's staring at you, so is everybody else standing there going, everybody's looking at me, and nobody's looking at anybody, right? That I don't know. Like people ask me, where does that come from? I have no idea. I have no idea where that comes from. I assure you, religion doesn't help, because religion ingrains in you that you must be good in this life in order to get a reward in the next life, as if this life, it has no purpose. Like that to me is so asinine.
Well, this place is a punishment. That's why. It's the devil's domain. And if you fall for his tricks, then sorry, sayonara. We'll see you on the flip side. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy just how many people just don't see right through that. It's a government is really what it is.
It is. It's a form of control. And I feel like if we could, I don't remember, I just saw this quote, daggone it, and I wish I could remember who said it, but I heard a quote from somebody, and it might have been in Age of Disclosure or somewhere like that. Someone said, if humanity knew what they were actually capable of, the world would never be the same, right? And that is so true. It is so true. But we as humanity, we're very impatient. We expect it to happen right now because our movies and our culture and our everything is instant gratification. We watch the movie, everything happens like magic, right? Yep. You fail to realize you are an unlimited piece of energy in a very limited environment. And when you're bringing something down into the 3D, it has to go through 2 other phases, right? So when you want to think about densities and ideas, like for whatever reason, this is where I'm being led. So I hope that's okay.
Oh,
so
please.
When you want to think about manifestation, okay, there's 3 different densities that we live in all the time. 3D is where your physical body is. The frequency is very slow. That's why things are solid, right? But everything is still moving. It's just slower, right? 4D is time, okay? It's outside of the physical, but not yet in the etheric. Time happens in your mind. It's the only place where you can time travel forward and back in time, right? Then you have 5D, where everything already exists all at once in like possibility, waveform, right? So what happens is you walk around and you start to put out the frequency of, I want to create a retreat. Let's just say that. So you're mulling this over in your mind, and then you catch in and align with an idea that's up there, right? In the 5D, let's say. So then you pull that giant idea, the possibility, and you pull it down into the 4D, and you start thinking about, well, what would this look like? Have I ever done this before? So you go back in the past and you think about, do I have anything to compare it to? Then you go forward in the future. What do I need to do this? And you start to make it get smaller and smaller. You start to collapse the wave function, right? And then when you bring it down into 3D, that's when you start taking action. That's when your throat chakra kicks in. And you go from possibility to probability. You collapse that wave function, you bring it down into your throat, and you take actionable steps to bring into the environment that you picked up on the 5D, but it has to go through all of those stages to get it down here. And then often to bring it into the physical, it has to go through stages of transformation that maybe you don't prefer. I want to have a retreat on a mountaintop. Well, there's no mountaintop available, but there's a beach, right? And where people get hung up is they say, but I want to do it on a mountaintop. Yeah, okay, right. So let's not get caught up on that. What is the feeling that you wanted to have? Can we focus on that? Can you have that feeling somewhere else? You know, like, don't put yourself in a box.
Which
you make it very hard.
You get told, oh, well, there's no mountain. So then you go right into the, oh, well, then it's not possible. So it throws you right out of the flow state. So now you're missing all of the opportunities.
Exactly. And, I had a client the other day who she was like, I don't understand. I thought I was doing what I wanted to, and I signed up for this program, and then there's all these problems with the program, and long story short, it's not getting accredited, and she's worried about it and all this stuff. And she goes, and now I feel like why did I even bother? And I go, okay, so let's just stop for a minute. You told me that you want to do therapy, but you want to do a non-traditional approach to therapy, yet you still want to get licensure, right? You have narrowed your field to 2 programs. So you picked one of the 2 programs to enroll in, and you got yourself into school, right? And now you find out that that particular program might not work, so you're just going to give up. Have you ever considered the idea that Source is going to reach out to you through the way you have the least resistance to? Maybe this program was the one that you were like, okay, I'll just try it, right? If I had told you before you enrolled, oh, this program is going to hold all kind of problems, you would have just given up. You wouldn't have enrolled in the other one. You would have just given up. So now that you're in the program, you're in school, you've got the momentum going, just because there's a hiccup doesn't mean you stop. It means you course correct. It's like your GPS saying rerouting,
Oh, man.
You can't give up just because something happened. Maybe that one course of line wasn't working out, but it still has momentum behind it. You got to find the right side to look at. It's not about,
100%.
Is it look exactly how I wanted it to?
Yes. And I got to be honest. I mean, even me in my own life, there's been so many different course corrections to where, you make a decision, you go so far, and then there's a roadblock. And it would be easier. And to be honest, most people would agree with you that it's all right to just throw your hands up and say, I'm done with it. I guess I just got to quit. But you almost, like you were saying, you got to feed and build off of the momentum that you that you are building. And because that's still fuel, that's still energy, you can still use that to pave the path that's in front of you, because, and that's the beautiful thing about a journey. There was this, the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year, right? And I'm not a huge Eagles fan, but whatever. It's Pennsylvania. I'm originally from Pennsylvania.
Steelers tattoo.
Yeah, I got to represent, even though we suck this year.
Listen, I'm a Steelers fan, right?
Are you?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Every Sunday, I'm at my brother's house watching Steelers and my sparkly Steeler stuff. So
yeah, well,
we're on the same team at least.
Hey,
That's good.
Cheers to us for not gouging our eyes out at this crap that we're seeing on the field. But but I will say, and we did just pick up Adam Thielen, so we'll see. But anyway, so last year the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and they have this receiver AJ Brown, right? And he is a monster. I love AJ Brown. He's just a dominant animal out there as a wide receiver, right? And he goes, I worked my entire career, my entire life to get to this point, and we won a Super Bowl. And you know what I realized? I like the journey on the way up there more than I liked actually winning the Super Bowl, because you never really know how you're going to get to the destination that you're trying to get to, because it's just like the Fool. You got to go through the magician and the high priestess and the emperor and the empress and the hierophant. And damn, I think I just named those in order, by the way. But
very good.
we're getting there. But it's almost like every single time there's going to be something that could, stumble you up a little bit. But most of the time, those things are tests. The understanding that we're getting to is that whenever something stumbles you up, it's like that's a test for you. And you could say, oh, well, it's just the devil, it's just the demon, not today, Satan, kind of bullshit, right? But if you actually looked at it as if it was a test, then it's almost like the universe or the source or whatever is like, oh, that you really want this then, because you got over that hump, and now the rest of the road it's almost like as soon as you climb up that mountain, and everybody's like, oh my God, how many more steps do I got to take to get up this damn mountain, right? And then hey, it's all downhill from there. Like, you just get to slide on down. It's just easy, cool runnings, and the path itself is the fun stuff that you're going to look back on. I've played football like for 20 years, right? And I won 2 championships in my life. Pretty awesome. But those weren't the awesomest or the most awesome times. I remember like the practices and the bus rides and, the pregame rituals and all that stuff, far more than actually winning the championship.
But I want to add something to what you were saying, right? I want to give you my perspective on what you were saying about being tested, right? Because I think that's a common way to look at it, but it's very disempowering because it gives you the feeling that the universe or source is trying to hold you back for some reason, and source wouldn't do that. Source is pure love. Why would it test you, right? You are testing you. So remember, I said every manifestation casts a shadow. So every roadblock that you come up is a reflection of one of those shadows, and it's asking you to deal with it. Okay. So for example, if you want to, for this person, this client I had, she is upset because she wants to do this program, right? And I said, well, is it possible that you're so dug in that it has to be a certification when maybe what you want to do is create something new? Like, have you ever thought of that? Like, maybe this is why it's so hard. And because you believe you need the certification, you're pushing yourself through this hard path. Is it possible that this is trying to show you that you don't need someone else to certify you in this? And she kind of looked at me and she's like, I never thought of that. And I said, right. Well, every manifestation casts a shadow. For you, one of the big shadows is you believe that you must have this string of letters after your name to be credible, to have clout, for people to believe you. And she just looked at me. She goes, well, I never thought of it that way. And I go, right. Because you don't have the perspective because you're in the middle of it. That's why I'm handy, right?
Yeah.
I'm not in the middle of it, right?
We always got the best advice. Oh, sorry. I was about to say, we always got the best advice for everybody else in the moment, but whenever we're stuck in there, we can't see anything,
Right. But that's why community is so helpful, because you can have your friend be like, hey, you're being obtuse about this, like back off a little bit. But I truly believe that this whole journey, this life experience that we're on, is the whole purpose of your life is to rediscover the joy of life, the excitement of taking a deep breath, the fun of jumping in the ocean, the heartbreak of a breakup, the excitement of graduation. This is the purpose, because where your higher self exists is outside of time, which means there can be no change. Without the progression of time, there can be no sense of change. Therefore, you incarnate into an environment that gives you that sense of change. And through quantum entanglement, your higher self is literally experiencing the same things you are so that it can grow and it can expand. But it's not trying to punish you. It's not telling you you're bad. It's not trying to hold you back. That's you. That's all you. That's all you. That's all you and your training and your belief that you're not good enough, that you inherently have to earn love from something, right? And I think that's something that's like in our DNA almost. It's like this wound that we have as a species that needs to be healed somehow. And I don't know that we can do that when we're in such a divided state, which is why I think disclosure is the next big step in our evolutionary process, because for us to come together as a species is going to require something like that. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
for Homo sapien to evolve into Homo universalis, it has to be we come together. What's going to make an entire planet come together? Something outside of the planet, right? And I don't necessarily think that it's going to be a threat, but because it's different and suddenly you're not the apex predator in your little universe, it's a little scary, you know? So it tends to draw people together, right?
Yeah,
This is where I think we're going. We're struggling with the transition, I think.
Mhm.
for sure. Yeah, you're gonna have people that are. I see it all the time. People are instantly jumping to anytime they hear about anything UFO or alien related. Well, it has to be demons. Like it just goes right there. I'm like, you haven't even met one. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're already judging it. It's kind of
Right.
crazy.
Well, and I also think it's important that we consider the fact that when the Bible was written, there may not have been an understanding of what they were dealing with, right? So this was unknown to them. So they're creating what made sense to them for the time that they lived in. And I don't think it's fair to judge their perception of something on our understanding. That doesn't make any sense. That's like taking first grade math and saying, okay, this is going to solve everything from here to college. And that's just not how it works. You have to build and grow and expand on what you already know. And it doesn't make sense to me to say, well, something that happened, 1,200 years ago or however long ago the Bible was written, that's how it is now.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. They also say in there that you can't keep your like shellfish in the same place as your milk. Like, I mean, things change, right? Like, let's look at this way.
Dude, do you want to hear
Absolutely.
something even crazier too? I just found this out. Now, I never really did a deep dive into the Dead Sea Scrolls, but I do think that it's weird about how the Nag Hammadi texts were found, and then like 4 years later, somebody finds the Dead Sea Scrolls. I felt like they were almost shitting their pants whenever those were found, personally. But what's interesting about the Dead Sea Scrolls is that there's almost all the same books in the Dead Sea Scrolls as are in the current version of the Bible, with a few exceptions. And one of the main exceptions is that in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there is no book of Revelation, but they include the book of Enoch, which is
Right.
super
I was just going to say
strange.
the book of Enoch, right? And the book
Yeah.
of Enoch, which I haven't read myself yet, but my husband, when he and I met, he was actually in theology school. And he was telling me that in the book of Enoch, there's like giants and I mean, the mating of humans and aliens to create the Nephilim and all this stuff. I mean, and when you think about the stories of like Atlantis and the Anunnaki and all this stuff, and you start thinking about that, and then you think about the echo in the text that we're seeing, and then you start thinking about traditions in other parts of the world where there's no way they could have communicated these things to each other the way things were, yet they have the same kind of origin story. How does that make any sense? You know?
100%. Yeah. And I was just looking it up because I've never really read super deep into the book of Enoch, but you know, you always hear about the giants and the watchers and stuff like that. And I was just looking it up here just to get kind of like the spark notes of it. And it says the main point of the book of Enoch is to explain the origins of evil, the fall of the angels known as the Watchers, and to provide a prophecy of a future divine judgment and messianic salvation. So it says the book details how the Watchers descended to Earth, corrupted humanity with forbidden knowledge, and fathered giants called the Nephilim, leading to the Great Flood and the future reckoning of the wicked. It also contains cosmic secrets and provides hope for the righteous through visions of a coming messianic figure and eternal life. So that's pretty
Boy,
interesting.
it sounds a whole lot like the Anunnaki story, doesn't
I
it?
was just getting ready to say that. It's the same.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. People don't want to look into that. It's
Nope.
like there is copy and paste stories from far older stories and then goes into the Bible. It's like,
Yeah.
how many times do we got to hear about, somebody being born of a virgin, somebody dying at 33, some kind of, world flood, even though, I mean, technically there's not enough water to ever have a world flood, even if you include all the water beneath the Earth's surface. But I don't know. I think that
Well,
a
have
lot
you
of that
ever
is,
seen, so are you familiar with Graham Hancock?
oh yeah.
Okay, so have you seen his series on Netflix and Ancient Apocalypse and all this stuff in the Younger Dryas event and all these connections all around the world? I don't understand. I don't understand how it is that science is so willfully ignorant, right? You have someone who, Graham Hancock, to his credit, all the time. He says, I'm not a professional. I'm just putting the pieces together. This is what I'm seeing. He's like, I think it bears further investigation. That's what he's saying. He's not saying it's this, it's that, it's whatever. He's speculating, but he's saying it bears further investigation. And rather than getting a professional response of, you're right, Graham, here's some evidence, let's put some money into it and go see this. Countries like Turkey might be doing that at Göbekli Tepe, but the U.S., our scientific field is like la 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 la.
Oh yeah, they would
require them to admit they're wrong.
Oh, and they would much rather have
do.
somebody go in there and just call them a racist and wipe their hands of it. You know, people like they had the debate between Graham Hancock and Flint Dibble on the Rogan show. My blood was boiling that entire damn episode. I was like, this guy, because he brings up the idea that Atlantis probably existed, somehow is a racist sentiment, blows my mind. How do you connect that? You know, and it's just, but I think that those are certain trigger words, and people don't want to, don't want to align themselves with somebody that's this or somebody that's that. And so you're just going to wipe your hands of it and maybe turn the other way. And you have to imagine that there's a lot of archaeology, there's a lot of history that would absolutely be totally destroyed if there was any kind of evidence that points to Atlantis, right?
Right. Well, and think about it. So one of the arguments that people have about Atlantis is if there was this advanced civilization, why is there no record of it? And I'm literally like, do you pay attention to where you live right now? Like, if there was a major solar flare that wiped out our grid, there would be no record of our technological advances. There would be nothing to show that we were advanced as we are. So what makes you think that that could not have happened before? Because you think you're the smartest version? Like, what gives you that impression? What makes you have that complex to think that you are all there is? You're the top of the food chain. Like, what makes you think that? There's no evidence to support that.
It's silly.
There is evidence to say that there was very slow evolution in different branches of Homo species, right? And then all of a sudden, there's massive quantum leaps in the way the brain grew. In like 300,000 years, we had more evolution than we had over millions of years.
Telomeres being capped. Yep.
That is not logical. That makes zero sense to me as a scientist, especially a scientist in biology. What is the factor that did that? Like, something had to have been there. That just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? It's not like that. Evolution is slow. It's evolution.
Right.
It's slow.
I mean, even if you were to say that, consciousness was evolving exponentially, I think we would at this point see some kind of evidence of that now. You know what I mean? Like just that one leap going from where we were to where we are. If it was exponential, and that's what they're going to say, then I think we would have evidence of that. We would see something right now happening where people are, probably have superpowers or something by now, right?
Well, I mean, that's the other thing though, is I think it depends on how you define that, right? I'm sure you guys are familiar with the telepathy tapes, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. That's a superpower.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
Right.
and there's a lot.
So-
And then we've talked about like the indigo children and the crystal children and the
Exactly,
rainbow children and
exactly.
stuff like that.
And even what I do, I had a friend text me today. So this is a true story. This is a true story. I have a very good friend who's going through some very difficult times. He and his family are going through some difficult times. And when I woke up this morning, I could not get him off my mind. And I just would not stop thinking about it. And he has children. And I thought, you know what? I want to make sure that his kids have a good Christmas. So I'm just going to see if it's okay if I just, send him a little something for Christmas money, something. So I text him and I said, hey, I want to do this. And he texts me back and he literally says, he woke up this morning and said out loud, I need help. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And here I come and drop that. He goes, he was like, this is magic. And I'm like, it's not magic. I'm just in tune with you. I'm just resonating on the same frequency you are. And I listen. That's all it is. Most people don't listen. Everybody gets those gut instincts. Every person gets those gut instincts. And most people discount it. Oh, there's something wrong with me because I'm feeling this. No, maybe that's a jerk. Maybe that person's bad. Like maybe it's a bad idea. Like maybe That's the truth. And maybe you're the antenna, right? The human ability to perceive things is so small. It's so small. Even when you think about the light spectrum, the light scale is this big. We can see that much.
Yeah, tiny little hair of it. That's all.
Right. So, I mean, just because you can't perceive it doesn't mean it's not there. You believe in Wi-Fi, right? You can't see it. It still works, right?
Somehow.
So,
I still don't understand it, but it do.
right. So I have my daughter's fiance is an electrical engineer, and I asked him because someone told me one time, they said, ask an engineer how electricity works because they don't know.
Right.
Right. And so I asked him, and he gave me a very long thing about conductors and blah, 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 blah. And I go, right, but how does electricity work? And he goes, well, and I go, no, you told me how the switch works. You told me how the outlet works. How does electricity work? And he just looked at me and he's like, well, I don't know. And I go, right.
Yes.
you know,
it's just the harnessing of it that they understand. They don't understand exactly what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's so strange too, like all that kind of stuff. And whenever people say, oh, well, you guys just like talking about the woo woo and all you got to do, or all you like talking about is just the spiritual, and you're playing with demons whenever you're shuffling tarot cards. And, you know, I actually recently, there was a guest who I love, that we had. So my other podcast, I'm no longer a co-host on there, but I manage it, right? And we had this guy, his name is Demon Eraser. Shout out, love the guy. But Jacob, my co-host, said to him, he goes, oh yeah, Jonathan, you know, he's focusing more on metamystics, and, you know, he's doing, because I do like past life regression hypnosis and stuff like that, right?
So fun. I love that.
So much fun. I'm getting back into it in January, by the way. But
I've had 3 of those.
You've had 3?
I've had 3.
I've had 2. They're great.
Of the QHHT, like they were like, 1 was 8 hours of a session and 2 were 6 hours.
Holy
like I wasn't
shit.
under for the whole time, but the session amount was that was mind blowing. Anyway,
wow.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
but that's
you went
such
deep.
a great tool. Such a great tool.
100%. And what's funny is that people of the, not all religious people, but there's a certain sect of religious people that will, like, what he said to Jacob, he goes, well, he doesn't understand that every time he's hypnotizing you, he's calling on a demon. And I'm like, what? Tell me, I don't know that process. I mean, look, I'm not talking about MK Ultra here. You know, I'm not poisoning you. I'm not torturing you. I'm not giving you keywords to make you bark like a dog or any of that crazy nonsense. It is, and I always like to say, it's a guided meditation. Essentially is really what it is. If you really break it down, there's a series of things that I tell you to put you into the theta state of mind, and what you see is what you see. I'm not telling you what to see. You know, and nobody has ever, even in my, I don't know, I probably had 200 to 300 sessions that I've given in my life, right? And never once did somebody, like, you know, turn into a demon after, you know, like.
Right. Well, you know, I think it's, for me, right? I think the idea behind demons is, it doesn't make sense to me logically, right?
Yeah.
I believe in energy. Energy is not trying to hurt you, right? Necessarily. It's neutral. It's energy. That's all it is. People have bad intentions, and intentions can carry echoes of energy, right? But law of attraction and your sovereignty is king in this universe. So if someone says to you, you're cursed, and you go, oh my God, I'm cursed, you've literally handed that to law of attraction. So law of attraction has no choice but to reflect to you reasons for you to feel that, because that's what you said. Wow. If someone says you're cursed and you go, no, bro, I'm good, there, law of attraction, there's nothing to work with there. The same thing with the idea of a demon. The idea of a demon is like saying you don't have sovereignty over this evil energy. And 2 things in that is flawed. Number 1, I would have to give permission for whatever energy it is to interfere in my space, because I'm king in my space. And let's make zero mistake about that. And the second one is that you would have to assume that that energy was conscious and was actively trying to hurt me. And what I understand about the universe is that's not the case, that hurtful things are man-made, right? The universe is neutral. The universe is not a man in the sky who's doling out judgment. The universe is like a battery.
It's the force.
Okay? It's a force. It's the force, right? The force is not going to slap you when you're mean, right? It works the same for a Sith as a Jedi, right?
Yeah.
So it just depends on you and what you say. The idea of a demon is incredibly disempowering, and it comes from the church, right? What better way to get you to do what I want you to do than to tell you if you don't do this and a demon's going to come and drag you to hell, or it's a convenient excuse. Demons made me do it.
It's never somebody that is actually looking themselves in the mirror and taking any kind of accountability. This is
Right.
this is one thing that just chaps me so damn hard, because why is it that demons get all the credit? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, anytime there's some kind of paranormal, anytime there's some kind of spiritual kind of stuff, maybe you go to a psychic and they're getting you a reading and they're talking to your long lost grandfather that passed away 10, 15 years ago. Why is it always a demon that's coming through? Like, the angels get no credit. God gets no
Right.
credit. It's kind of crazy if you really think about it. So
Right,
it's that kind of stuff that I'm just like, whenever I started hearing that, I'm like, that is way too simple to be categorizing that. Like, there has to be more into it. And
and it's getting into cultural belief, right? If you want to talk about the universe, you have to do it at the base level. You have to come from the eyes of energy, because energy is what everything is based on. The center of your cells, the center of this universe, everything is energy, right? So when you start saying things like demons and angels, you are implying or putting on your belief structure onto that energy, because someone in another culture doesn't have that same idea, and they're using different words to explain the exact same thing you are.
Well,
so that doesn't make it any more valid. You know what I mean?
and even the people that use demons and angels, like, maybe in their rituals, maybe as a magic thing or whatever, I still don't believe that that is exactly what's going on. I think that that is kind of just the human brain's way of characterizing and humanizing an energy that is outside of them in a way that they can better understand. For example, we have this is a servitor. Actually, it was made from a tulpa that we created. The guy who made our logo, shout out to the Doodle and Dork, but he put this mystical alien translucent octopus to steer our van, right? Like, it's our meta mystery machine. And that's what we originally created it for, right? And so we were like, oh, well, let's just make a tulpa out of him, right? And so then our magical friend, his name is Lord Byron Jester, shout out to him. He decided to take these crystals and charge them up and, do radionics and really like formalize the tulpa that was what we call Marv, is the octopus, right? Yeah. And it's like, it's a thing that you can do to where almost like allow it to run in the back of your mind. If you want to use that as maybe some kind of energetic push, you think that you're now receiving some kind of extra help, then if it works in your mind, then if that's how you want to categorize it,
that's intention. That's just intention, right? You are charging that with your intention. And I do believe 100% in that, right?
It's like outsourcing intention, essentially.
Yes, but it's giving you a sort of backdoor way to give your confidence in what you believe, right?
Yes.
It's a permission slip. I believe, my personal belief is there are different frequencies of energy, so many frequencies that we in the human brain cannot probably even comprehend this, right? Over time, I think some of those frequencies interact with the human body and the human psyche differently, right? Just like 432 hertz reacts differently with your body than 532 hertz, right? I think some of these different frequencies have been given names over time, like Lilith or Jesus or whatever. It's just a frequency. That's all it is. Do those frequencies have individual, for lack of a better word, characteristics? Absolutely they can, but it's just a frequency, just like a music note you play, right? G is G, right? But
fuck, that's all we are.
Right,
if you really think about it,
I think that giving names to these can be helpful, because it makes us, for humans that want to neatly label and define everything, it can make it easier to access those different frequencies. Right. But the flaw comes in when you give power to those frequencies over you or outside of you, because the power comes from you. You activate the frequency, you bring it forward, you work with it. It comes from you. It's not acting upon you, right? And that's something that we need to understand, is that you are number one. You are king of your castle. And what you say goes. And if you tell yourself you're going to have a bad day, guess what? You're going to have a shitty day. And if you tell yourself you're going to have a great day, guess what? You're going to have a great day. And it works that way on everything. And although sometimes it takes a little bit to kind of catch up and get going, a lot of that's because you have so much momentum built up behind you from the 35 years that you just spent beating yourself up. That doesn't just stop, right? Momentum is momentum, and it has to sort of play itself out. You can't just go 100 miles an hour in one direction to 100 miles an hour in the other direction. You have to slow down, stop, reverse course, then start picking up speed and doing things. And the way you do that is small, actionable steps. And if calling on a frequency that you named Lilith helps you do that, then by God, do it. And when people ask me, well, is it just a placebo effect? Guess what? Who cares? Right. Why does it matter?
And placebo effects are magic in and of themselves anyway. Like just to say
matter.
it's just better, a placebo.
Why does it matter? Like, we have to stop doing that. That's something that happens in the medical field a lot, is we want to dissect things down to the very nuggets and the nuts and bolts. We want to understand everything. And that's part of the humanity in us, right? We want to understand how everything goes. But I don't necessarily believe that we were designed to understand how everything goes, right? Like, have you ever tried to think of what it would feel like to be dead?
I don't want to, but yeah, it happens.
It hurts. Your brain your brain can't process. It's like, it's not, because you can't not exist. That's an oxymoron.
Right.
You can't not exist. So your brain cannot even process that, because you're still thinking. You're still thinking.
Imagining what the experience would be,
because it's impossible, because it cannot happen, right? And when you can look at it like that, oh, maybe that's what it is, instead of saying, well, maybe it's because the synapses and blah blah blah. No, maybe it's just because it can't happen, right? Like, maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's just a cow. Let's not just call it a hamburger. Maybe it's just a cow, you know?
Yeah. It's funny too, because like existence has never not existed. You know, and so whenever even the atheists out there, I actually feel worse for the atheists than I do the religious people, to be honest with you, because to not be connected with anything spiritual, what an unmagical life that is. And, you know, we actually, we were reading this book I had mentioned earlier about like learning about the deeper symbolism within tarot. And Rachel Pollack actually wrote that book. Really, really great book. And one of the things that she said in there is that you have to be your own synchronicity generator. And it's like you almost have to pick up on the signs and the symbols, because whenever you give attention to that kind of stuff, you're almost powering it up. Oh, I just saw a 111, so my day is going to be awesome. You're almost speaking that into the universe at that point. So you're essentially a synchronicity generator. And just the other day, I took the kids to go see the new Now You See Me movie. Fuck yeah. So awesome. Absolutely loved it. But there was one quote at the very end of the movie, and I said this in a prior episode, but it's so awesome I need to say it again. The main guy, J. Daniel Atlas or whatever, the guy that from the Facebook movie, he said, no matter what cards life deals to you, you have to learn to make your own magic. And I was like, oh my God, that is a full on like affirmation that you just need to be speaking to yourself every day, making your own magic. I mean, because look, I think that it can come to you whenever you're not expecting it, for sure. But man, how much more powerful is it if you're the one that is kind of looking for the signs and looking for the signals and the synchronicities and stuff to almost like power up your own generator inside of the matrix that is your life.
Right. Yes. And let go of the disappointment if you don't see exactly what you want to see.
Yeah, because it's all a sign.
Maybe there's some resistance in you. Like it's so hard. It's like this never ending circle, right? It's a snake eating its tail. There's always something. I tell people all the time, for me, when I communicate with like my guide, which I call her a female. She's not like what my guide presents herself to me. She looks like a blue electric cotton ball. I don't know how else to explain that. That's just what she looks like. Right. Wow. And when she presents herself to me, it's usually to give me nudges. Right. And one of the things I tell people is I started playing a game with her, right, where I use synchronicities as the hot and cold game. So if I'm moving in the right direction and doing things, then I will get streams of synchronicities. If I have a day or two where I don't have very many, then it's an indication to me to stop and ask myself, okay, wait, where did I get off course? Where did I shift my focus? When did that, and it's kind of a reminder to, hey, what are you focused on? What are you doing? What are you, but you're right. Whatever you give your attention to is going to build, and it works in both directions. So you have to keep that in mind when you're building the momentum behind something.
And with those synchronicities, one thing that I found in just my own life, whenever you're firing on all cylinders and today's a great day and things are going in the right direction and I'm getting a lot of energy built up, you got to learn to take advantage of those damn days like crazy. Yes. Like you cannot just like, oh, I can get that later. I'm feeling really good today. I'm going to get comfortable. I'm going to turn on my favorite TV show and I'm just going to sink into the couch. It's like, you need to be taking advantage of that. So if there's anything that you need to get done, man, if you need to write in your journal or you need to, whatever you need to do, man, that is one thing that I have found. Whenever I'm on a roll, I try and stay on that roll because there's going to be days, I don't know if it's the phases of the moon. I don't know if it's astrology. I don't know if it's the damn Schumann resonance, but there are some days where I am out of it. I can't speak. I can't think. I have no energy. And so I want to prepare myself to where whenever those days come along, I did enough yesterday to take care of that,
Yes. And I think those days are very normal. If you think about nature and the Fibonacci sequence, everything's a spiral, right? So I think we as humanity also have energetic days where we're in the spiraling up and we're like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then you have the day where you have to like regroup and pull yourself back together. That's very normal. And I think people punish themselves because they've built their worth into their productivity. And we can't do that. We can't do that because that's a flawed premise as well, people, you got to stop being so hard on yourselves. One of the things I tell someone a lot of the times I'll say is a very helpful tool is I have a running Word document on my computer. It's been a running Word document for 5 years. Every morning I get up, I come in here and I open that document and I leave it open all day long. And if I have an idea, I'll run in here and type it out. I don't have to complete the idea, but I want to catch it before I forget it because ideas, Michael Jackson once said that ideas are like living things. You need to catch these things, right? Because if you think about it, like, think about this, think about how many times there are like groups of movies that come out all the same, right?
Yep.
Chunks, right? It's because all of those creatives are writing the same frequency at the same time and picking up on that idea, right? So when that idea drops into the ether and you're on that frequency, grab it, write it down. You don't have to build Rome today, but write down the blueprints while you have the idea, Right. And then what I do is about every couple months, I'll go back and go back through it. And I guarantee you without fail, at least 2 or 3 times, I'm like, oh, I forgot all about that. That's a great idea. I need to do that. Stuff like that happens all the time. Everybody carries a phone in their pocket. Send yourself a text, make a voice note. You have the technology in your hand. Catch these ideas and then give yourself permission to not have to get it all done today. When you work from inspiration, it's very different than working from motivation. Motivation is outside of you. You're trying to reach a goal that someone else gave you. Inspiration is because you feel inspired. That's what flow feels like. And again, a dualistic universe, you have to learn to balance the two of those, right? That's part of the process.
Yes. I want to touch a little bit more on this this guide of yours, this electric blue cotton ball kind of sentient being, if you will. But can you tell us a little bit about that? That's something that we've really tried to kind of hone in on because we have a bunch of friends that come onto the show and they talk about their guides. Shout out to Electro Nick. He's always talking about how he's always in constant communication with his Pleiadian guides. And we're like, man, I have a hard time discerning what a guide would be and what my higher self is telling me. For example,
I don't know that they're necessarily very different. Because if you want to be very, very macro, everything's all one, right? So your guide is just another fragment of your higher self, right? Yep. It's just kind of like your buddy, your travel buddy, kind of like in Pokemon, the little thing that sits on your shoulder. That's kind of what your guides are, right? everyone has them. My understanding is that you have, the way it was demonstrated to me by my guides is it's kind of like middle school teachers, right? You have different subjects and there's a guide that specializes in that subject. And as you move through your journey, when you step into that subject, that guide will step forward and become your primary for whatever reason, right? So for me, my awakening experience, I was so disconnected from nature. My first guide that demonstrated themselves to me was a Native American man. Like he showed him, like he physically, I thought I was having a mental meltdown. Like I went to the doctor because of this. I was like, I'm seeing shit, right? Like I was meditating and this Native American man showed himself to me and he was giant and his face was dark. I could never see his face, never, but I could see the long hair and he was dressed like not a chief, but like he had all this stuff on him. And he came and he told me, because I had become so disconnected from nature, because I was so far into science, he came to remind me of my connection to nature. And
Wow.
I was obsessed for months. You can't really see it, but behind me, I have an entire apothecary of little tiny jars of different herbs that I spent months learning about, right? Because I couldn't get enough of it. And it was like this insatiable drive. And I had that really intense for like 6 months or so. And then one day I was in meditation and he again sort of appeared to me and he literally said to me, "We're done now," and just disappeared.
Wow.
And
Whoa.
in the meditation, it startled me. Like it pulled me out of meditation and I was like, I thought I did something wrong. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like I freaked out, you know? And things were very quiet. I could meditate, but I wasn't getting like what I was used to. Where for me, I'm a very visual receiver. I get a lot of images.
Same.
Like even talking to you, I'm constantly getting images running through my head. I got nothing. It was like radio silence, which for me, I in my entire life don't remember that ever happening. So it was very bizarre. And then eventually this blue cotton ball showed up. She told me, I refer to her as she. I don't think she's feminine in nature. I think because I'm she, I just refer to her as she. She told me her name is Uriah. And I said, what, Uriah? Like it, the way it was demonstrated to me is I saw this like a sparkler, like a blue sparkler right in the air, a big giant EURIAH, and then a swoop after it. And then my whole body, like I felt this surge of energy through my body. And then suddenly I was just aware. So when I tell people she says something to me, it's not like I hear words. It's just easier. It's the easiest way to explain the information receiving, right? Because it's instantaneous. It's not like she whispers in my ear and then she told me this. I just have a knowing that comes through.
Like a telepathic kind of thing.
Yes, like a telepathic kind of thing. And for me, the way my energy works is when I have a session with someone, I have to be invited into the conversation. I am not someone who can just walk into a room and cold read. I don't do that. My energy does not work that way because I'm not designed to do that. My job here is to help you modulate your frequency. So what happens is we have a conversation, and through that conversation, you come up like this to where we are, and we start vibing right here, and we talk about all these things you want to talk about, and then I disappear and you stay here, right? And it's kind of like a parent teaching you to ride a bike. I'm running behind you, but I'm going to let go and you're going to keep going. That's my job, right? And Uriah, when she comes forward, it's kind of like she's tapped in. Like the image she gives me is like it sounds silly, but it's like an extension cord. She shows me an extension cord and she reaches out and plugs it into you. And then I get the energy from that. And you know, I don't know that she's separate from me. I think she's part of my higher self, just like past lives. Right. They're not you, right? Like I'm sure you explain this to people all the time, Jonathan. It's not you making these decisions. It's not you, Jonathan, making these decisions. The way my regressionist explained it to me is you have to think of it like twins, related but separate, right? Same mother, separate person, right? So Uriah is like that for me. And that's kind of what I think guides are. Now, as far as talking to the Pleiadians, I personally believe that there are physical Pleiadians. I personally believe they are able to communicate just like Bashar is able to receive communications because certain people's frequencies are attuned to receive that. I am not.
That kind of stuff does make sense to me. Just
Yeah.
like tuning, your tuner on your radio, you go to 102.5, 96.1, you're going to be getting different stuff coming through
Right.
your speaker very clearly sometimes, most of the time,
Yes.
really.
Yes.
And so whenever people like, certain channelers or whatnot are receiving some kind of message like that, and how clear it comes in, maybe you don't even have to be a channeler. I mean, you can just do that in meditation. You can
absolutely.
receive that in a past life regression. Maybe you want to get a little psychedelic with it. There's plenty of different ways to be able to tap into whatever that is. And it always attunes to the frequency that you are, the frequency that you're giving off, the frequency that is entirely encompassing whatever is you. If you were a radio station, what channel, what channel would that align to with the rest of the universe, kind of thing.
Right.
So it does make sense, like logically in my mind. I just try to, I think I try too hard to get there, and like I want things to happen.
Well, here's the thing to remember. Just like fingerprints, we're all individual, right? So what works for me is not going to work for you. And it's not going to work for Sean. Everybody is individual frequencies. So your guides must speak to you through your frequency. And the way you interpret that is going to be different. Some people receive very visually. Some people receive very audibly. Some people receive very physically. Some people get all of that. Some people get none of that. It just depends. I personally am not attuned, as far as I know, to any extraterrestrial or non-human, so to speak, frequencies. I don't receive downloads from aliens. I just don't. It's nothing. I would love to. That's something I'm like, yes, please, but it just doesn't happen for me. Just like I'm not also very strong in mediumship. I don't talk to dead people. It's not part of the frequency that I'm attuned to. Does that mean I can never do it? No, it happens sometimes, usually on accident. I'll be in a session with someone and something very intense comes forward and a very intense emotion will come up, and that will bring forward the presence of the person associated with that emotion, right? That's the energy brings them forward, not me, right?
Right.
But everybody's different. And I think the reason we're all so different is so that we work together. Right. So if you have someone who can draw a blueprint, someone who can build the materials, someone who can put the material together, someone who can manage the building, you put them all together, you have a working system. Right. So I think the reason we're all different frequencies and attuned differently is so that we can work together and get a complete picture, because only your frequency, Jonathan's frequency, is only receiving this much. Erin's frequency is only receiving this much. Sean's frequency is only receiving this much. But imagine how much we could receive if we put all of that together. And we just started talking about it and stopped judging it and said, oh, well, this is what I got and this is what I got,
You have a really good way at breaking things down so logically and easy to understand. So I want to ask you this question now, because it's something that we've pondered and we're just like, it works. I don't know how it works, but it do. And one of those things is tarot. So at the end of every single episode, we do a tarot reading, and 100 times out of 100, well, I mean, we're up over 300 episodes now, so 300 and some, over 300 and some, it has happened to where every single time we do a tarot reading, it is perfectly correlates with the episode of something that we just talked about. And I guarantee you, and I'm not even going to knock on wood, that is how entrenched in this knowing that I know that it will happen. We're going to get a card tonight that we're all three. We're just gonna be like, wow. And I don't know, maybe it'll shock you. Maybe it won't shock you. You seem
nothing shocks me anymore. I got to tell you, it would take a lot to shock me because of my own personal experiences. I mean, there's stuff that I've experienced today that I'm like, if you asked me 5 years ago, I would have laughed you out of the room,
Yep.
But when it comes to tarot, it's all frequency, right? So each card has a frequency assigned to it by you. When you read the book and it says this card means this, in your mind, you've assigned a frequency to that card to mean this, right? So when you sit down and you start shuffling the cards, the frequency assigned to the card that resonates with what you've been talking about is typically, the way I shuffle, what jumps out at you, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost, the way it's shown to me visually is, if you think of a flow of energy, it's like a glitch. It just goes bloop like this, and it just bloop, bloop, bloop like that. It's just about resonance. That's all it is. We've built up all this energy between us right now. So then you pick up your cards, and the card that resonates with the frequency that we've built up is going to be the one that most likely comes to the surface.
Yeah, and I've been seeing Sean shuffling over there this whole episode. So whenever he gets his hand on his card, on his cards, it's like I know he's just like building that energy up and really trying to tune it in there. So,
Oh yeah,
um,
it's ready to go whenever
yeah,
you guys.
it's hot. It's hot off the press. It's about to happen. But look, before we get to that, I want to try and get into a couple of more things just real quick. Some things that have been on my mind. So, what do you think is going to be the thing that actually clinches absolute like disclosure as far as aliens, UFOs, this kind of stuff? Because there's still not a lot. There's still a lot of non-believers out there. But I think that more so now than ever, a lot more people are accepting of this kind of thing. And so much so that it'll drop in the news. And I mean, people aren't even burning cars down. You know, it's just
Right.
something that is, it's like, oh yeah, I already knew that there was aliens. But, you know, how do you think that's going to happen? Do you think it's going to be physical alien entities coming from other planets? Are they coming from other dimensions? Are they coming from other times? Are they ultra dimensional? You know, like, what do you think is really going on with all that? And how do you think
Man.
disclosure will happen for the masses? Or do you think that it'll be even be for the masses?
So I think we're already in disclosure. If you think about this topic 50 years ago and when you started talking about it versus when you talk about it now, right?
Taboo. Yeah.
Right. So at least now it's being talked about. And I think in order for us as a functioning society to get through something like disclosure, it has to happen extremely slow, right? Because you're talking about ontological shock. The realization that you are not alone in the universe is massive. And while people like to tell themselves, I'd be fine with it, there's a very big difference between thinking you'd be fine with it and actually being confronted with it, right? So for me, I actually think it will be very physical, and I think AI is part of it. So I think AI is the bridge.
Let's go.
Because I think that if there is a species that can utilize energy in such a way to travel here, that means they're most likely not speaking English. And
Right.
they've most likely evolved past that. So how do you fix that gap? How do you communicate with a society that refuses to believe they're telepathic? Hello, Siri. Right?
Damn. That's a great point.
So now you have the language of math, which is universal as far as we know, that can be downloaded into Siri, who can translate into any language the message that wants to be said. So I personally believe that it will have to be some sort of physical event that worldwide gets attention. And I had a dream. I haven't told a lot of people about this, but I had a dream. So my daughter is getting married next year and she wants to have kids, right? And I had a dream. This was probably 2 or 3 years ago. It was one of those ultra real dreams. And this was after a past life regression. And the woman who did my regression, she told me that after you start having these, you sort of open a door and you start getting all kinds of stuff sometimes. Right?
It does happen a lot after past life regressions too. It happens for everybody that I've given a regression to. They're like, oh my God, my dreams the next few days are crazy.
Yeah. So this is one of those super hyper realistic dreams. And in the dream, I was standing in a backyard of a house and I had like a 6-month-old on my hip. Obviously not my child, right? I knew it wasn't mine, but I had the feeling that it was family or something. And I heard a noise and I looked over my shoulder and there was something so large sort of descending into the atmosphere that it blocked out the sky, right? It was enormous, like something out of Star Wars, like one of the big destroyer ships, right? Started to descend into our atmosphere. And in that moment, I thought to myself, oh, there it is. And then I woke up like that, right? And so for me, I think it's going to have to be something like that. I think we'll have warning, and I think AI is part of that. I think our government is well aware of what's going on, right? There's no doubt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they know what's going on. And humanity has become the stupid apes playing with the matches, right? And at some point, a smarter something is going to have to intervene and take the matches away from us. And that's where I think we're headed, especially when you see the tensions building between the countries around us, all this stuff. For me, we're building like this, right? And when we get here, something's going to have to happen. And that's what I think it's going to have to be, or we're going to blow ourselves up and we're just going to be another Atlantis. I personally believe it'll be in the I believe it'll be in the next 5 years. I really believe it'll be in the next 3 years or less. And if you pay attention to all the prophecies, if you listen to what Chris Bledsoe, are you guys familiar?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I had the immense pleasure. I got to meet Chris Bledsoe. And I talked to him just a little bit, and his daughter, Emily. This man is 100% genuine. There is no mistaking when I was talking to him. He is 100% genuine in everything he says. And he talked about how the lady told him something to the effect, I don't remember what color it was, but when the blue star is on the horizon and lines up with the face of the Sphinx, that the humanity will enter a new age. Well, someone went to AI and typed that in, and it turns out that the star Regulus lines up with the Sphinx on Easter of 2026.
Perfectly.
Right.
And
so there's too many things. There's too many things, right? And again, correlation doesn't mean causation, but when there's so much correlation, you must look at causation. And to me, that's what I feel like we're building towards.
Wow. And well, I was going to ask you, you mentioned like we're the chimps playing with the matches, why do you think it is that some ETs or whatever they are, why do you think they care?
Because I don't think that we live in a vacuum. If the earth blew up, it would have
like a domino effect.
It would have huge effects, not just on our small solar system, but on the entire corner of our universe. And if you have to think of space-time like a fabric, it's not just this thing out there. It's like a fabric. And if you put a bowling ball on a mattress and set the bowling ball on fire, the mattress freaks out, right? So you have to think of it like it's not just an empty space. It's like a fabric, the space-time fabric. So you have to take care of your local space-time, right? That's why they care.
Yeah.
They don't care about us. They care about them. you know?
Their reality.
I just experienced recently, and I had come to this like somewhat of an epiphany of like this universe being chaotic, or almost like it's like teetering chaos, and so it's just right on the line of being that homeostasis type of rhythm, and so just getting rid of one planet would really kind of throw everything off.
It does. And just think about your own body, right? One cell in your body starts to replicate incorrectly. Now you have cancer.
Right.
One cell.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm sure there's something definitely on the horizon. At least it feels that way, for sure.
So I really feel like there's so much purpose in a lot of the trends that we're seeing, right? You see a lot of people wanting to, suddenly they feel the call, they want to work for themselves. And there's this pull to get away from big box stuff and this pull to go back to farmers markets and individual vendors. And like even myself, like for Christmas this year, I made all my gifts. Instead of buying stuff, I made everything.
So much better.
And there's such a pull for that. So many people are feeling that. And I refuse to believe that that's a coincidence, because everything is resonance. Everything is energy. If we are all feeling it, that tells me there's an active frequency trying to move us in that direction. And we see the reflections in the world around us. Africa's literally splitting in half. We have volcanoes waking up that have been dormant for 10,000 years. The earth is evolving. We are her inhabitants. It is illogical to think that we are not also evolving, right? It's impossible. It wouldn't work that way.
Well, and that goes line in line with what you are kind of watching with the whole Schumann resonance, right? Like, so just getting back to that, because I do want to understand it a little bit more. Are there certain, how do you know, like, all right, so if I'm a newbie and I'm looking at the chart, like, how do I know to, like, certain signifiers that stand out more so than others? Like, what exactly do we look for with that?
So you want to look for, on the Russian graph, big white energy is very intense energy. And the more it spreads out on the graph, the more diffuse the energy is, the more intense it tends to feel in your body for me, right? Red energy tends to be associated with bringing up dense emotions to release them, right? Where I got this information is simply from observation of how I felt related to what I was seeing and anything I received in meditation. There's sometimes, there's plenty of stuff that I'll say in my videos and people will go, well, why did you say that? I'm like, well, I don't know. That's just what they gave me. You know, when I make my video in the morning, when I go on and make my video, I'm in a direct channel mode. I don't rehearse that. I don't write that out. That is pure feed that comes straight through. And sometimes I'll go in and I'm like, oh, I need to talk about this, this, and this. And not once will I mention any of it, right? Because it's just not important. The best thing I would tell for anybody is pay attention to the graph and how you feel, right? You can use what I tell you as kind of a guideline, but always go by what you feel, because you are an individual frequency. So if every time we have big white energy and you're tired, just because I'm saying I feel electrified when we have big white energy does not mean you are wrong because you feel tired when you have it. That's just how your body is dealing with that particular type of energy. Right. So once you start observing the patterns, then you can better work with what works for you. As the teacher, my greatest thing for you is to want you to go off and not need me to be your teacher. You know, I want you to expand.
That's a mark of a good teacher right there. Yeah, I think, is this I pulled up a Russian Schumann resonance. I wasn't sure if this is the one or not, but.
This is the one. This is the one. So when you look at this graph, so the green horizontal lines.
Those are vertical.
Oh, horizontal. I'm tripping.
Yeah,
it's
the green
other
horizontal lines, that's the background energy. That's us, right? And you see how there's 3 bands, right? Yep. Those are the harmonics. Those are the resonant frequencies of the Schumann. Okay. When you see the red, that's release energy. When there's a big green halo around the red, that signifies intensity, right? Because the green is us. So if the background noise increases at the same time that the red does, that tells me that this is affecting us more intensely than we might expect it to. Right?
Okay. So whenever you see like, this looks like a lot of activity right up in here then, right? Like how would you read that if you're looking at this chart, like this specific portion of it?
Right. So for me, with the harmonics, each harmonic represents a different zone. So when you're up at the top, that's your crown chakra. Then you have the first horizontal line that comes across. That's your third eye. Then the next one that goes across is your throat. Right?
Okay.
And the next one that goes across is your heart. And that's all the chakras that are here because these are the etheric facing energy, right? On the Kumiana graph, on the Italian graph, that is earth based. That's from the ground up. And so those are the bottom 3 chakras, the ones that are associated with physical living. So when I'm pointing at this, it's almost always with those upper chakras. The release can spread beyond just the lower chakras. And I don't have a good way to explain to you how I know that when I look at it. It's just one of those things that I just kind of know when I look at it. Yeah. But that's the basics of it.
Little intuition going on there.
Yeah. The red that you see on this graph, this release, this is uncommon, right? This is not something we see in those harmonics down there. So what that tells me is that throat and heart release was really intense. So that's going to bring up a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of deep reactions to things, big emotional reactions to stuff you wouldn't normally have a reaction to, triggers getting stepped on, all that stuff. That's what's in here. But that's all purposeful because I almost would guarantee you in the next, I'd say 48 hours, we probably have a big white patch that comes in because the red comes forward to get you to let go, make space in your biosphere. So when the big white energy comes in, it can integrate into that space.
So as far as what's being displayed right here, is this just one particular day?
So if you look across the top, it's a 3-day view. But you have to remember that this is Russian time and they're 13 hours ahead of me, right? So I'm Central Time Zone and they also use a 24-hour clock. Okay. So when I'm giving the times, what I'm doing is so when I look at this graph right now, it's the lines at the 11, right? So that tells me that it's at the 10. So that tells me that this is an accurate graph for the time where I am right now because they are 13 hours ahead of me and it's 9:30 p.m. where I am. Okay. So when I look at this graph, I can see that we're at about 9:30 or so on the graph.
Okay, yeah, it looks, this must be December 1st, December 2nd, and December 3rd.
Because they write the dates. We write the date wrong.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we like to Americanize a lot of things.
Exactly.
Okay, wow. So this is a live thing of what has been going. Today's the 3rd, right? Or no, today's the 2nd.
Well, but there's 12.
They're ahead of us.
Hours ahead. So yes, it is accurate for right now.
Wow. All right. Yeah, this is something that I would definitely love to try and keep track of now that we have a decent understanding about what's going on here. I'm sure that there's still a lot more to really, damn, I just zoomed in there. It was like perfect time. But I'm sure that there's like a lot more to really harness with it. Like you were talking about how you're almost like intuitively connecting with it. And
Yeah.
that probably just comes with time, you know, like the same thing that somebody would do with tarot. You know, you start to intuit a
Yes.
little bit more.
And it comes with confidence, right? So you're always receiving. I tell people all the time, you're always receiving. A lot of people discount it as imagination. There's no difference. There is zero difference between your imagination and what source is giving you. Imagination has zero resistance. So source will use that.
That's
right?
the highway. Yeah.
That's the highway. So when you're looking at these things and you start having these thoughts, oh, you know, like for me, when I go live and I start talking, Erin, sort of step to the side and I'm not fully aware of everything that I'm saying. That's why sometimes it sounds weird, or I say a weird joke and then I make a weird face because I'm like, why did I just say that? You know, it's just weird stuff like that. But that's how it works for me. When you sit down and you look at that graph, tune into your body, right? Before you look at the graph, don't use the graph to tell you how you feel.
Right.
Figure out how you feel and then associate that with the patterns on the graph. Right. And that's how you establish what is actually you and what's, you know, you're implying, right?
That's
You
the
wanna
same
go
thing
with,
you
how
would
do
do
I
with the
feel?
tarot, actually.
Yes. How do I feel first? And then you look at the graph and then just keep track of it. That's all you need to do. And then over time, you'll start to see patterns. And there will be plenty of days that don't line up. Everybody has, you know, you get into a pattern, you're like, yeah, this is what this means. And then it'll show up and you're like, but I don't feel that. Okay, that's fine. You're not always going to be feeling it because maybe you're not in theta state, or maybe you're focused on something else. This is not forced for you. This is like a buffet. The food is here. You can eat it if you want to. You don't have to, right?
Right.
That's
No,
what it's
and I'm
like.
glad you said, as far as like, you know, feel what you feel first and then look at it, because I feel like people would look at that and then go, okay, well, today's gonna suck. You know what I mean?
Right.
Already kind of put themselves into that vibe, rather than, okay, today might be challenging, but I'm going to overcome
Exactly.
and I'm going to be prepared, and I'm
Right.
gonna mute the day to the most positive that I can.
And that's exactly why I make the video. It's the way I like to describe it is it's like a weather report. It's like, you know, my mom used to turn the weather on every morning before she left for work. Do I need a raincoat? Is it going to be cold? What do I need to do? That's what this is, right? I'm like telling you, on your drive to Chicago, 90's under construction, pack snack, right? Like that's what this is. That doesn't mean that you have to take 90. You could go down to 90 and avoid the whole thing, right? It's just telling you this is what's in the air. This is what I'm picking up on. It may or may not affect you. But if you tell yourself, I think a lot of people use that as an excuse to be mean to themselves. Well, I don't feel it the same way you do, so something's wrong with me. No, there is zero wrong with you. You got to stop telling yourself that. You are just an individual. That's all it is. And there's nothing wrong with that.
So is this something, do you ever couple this information with anything else? Do you look at your astrology, or do you do a meditation and kind of meditate on it or anything like that? Like, what do you do with it? Do you couple it with
So,
anything else?
I have a whole process, right? So I don't know anything about, I know very little about astrology, very little about crystals. I literally know nothing except energy. Like that's my jam, right? My day starts with energy. So my alarm goes off 30 minutes before I actually have to be out of bed. And every single morning I listen to a Reiki Rachel meditation, like Reiki activation, right? Just to get my day moving in the right direction. Then I get up out of the bed and I walk into the bathroom. And regardless of what I'm doing, one of the ways I use to communicate with my guides was, you know, sidebar. If you have an iPhone, if you Shazam a song, it will create a playlist of all the songs that you have Shazammed. So if I hear a song that gives me goosebumps or chills or something, I hit Shazam and it creates a playlist of all these. So in the morning, when I go into the bathroom to take a shower, brush my teeth, whatever, I open that playlist, I close my eyes and I say, tell me a story. And I hit shuffle. And the first 3 songs that come up, because 3 is a special number for me, give me an indication of what my day is going to be like. And it's not that I have just positive songs on there. I have some songs that make me sad on there, you know, because it resonated with me. But like things like I have a lot of AJR on there because I love AJR. And, you know, a birthday is one that comes up a lot. And that's about starting something new. And that'll come up. And then later in the day, I have a new idea for a project. You know what I mean? It's just kind of telling me what to look for. And then once I'm done with those 3 songs, I play Abraham Roulette, and I open up YouTube, and whatever Abraham clip comes up, the very first one, I just hit play. And it's usually about 10 minutes long. I finish up in the bathroom. It builds the energy in the space. Then I go into my meditation. I'm in meditation for about 15 minutes. I pick up my phone, I grab my cards, I go downstairs, and I walk outside. And that's the whole process. In meditation, it's not like I'm being told, okay, say this, say this, say this. What I'm doing in meditation is calming myself down enough to not block the flow of information. I'm just getting my mind to stop doing this enough so that I can let this just flow straight through.
And that's a lot easier, especially if you're going through your tried and true, I guess for a lack of a better word, ritual of the day.
Yeah. It's I'm a person, I have autism. I have autism and ADHD. I like to have routines and then not do them. Like that's, but routines really are helpful. And this, you have to learn how to work with your energy. It's like any other skill, right? This teaches my energy. This is what it looks like when I'm ready to work, right? Like in this room, this is the room where I work. If I come in this room and I shut the door, that's an indication of my energy. I'm ready to work. My energy, I can feel it. It starts to amp up. I start to get tingles. I start to hear things and feel things. But the minute I walk out of this door, I've taught my energy. That means I'm done. I don't want to go to Walmart and hear my neighbor's problems, right?
Yeah.
So I had to set boundaries, and that's been very helpful. That's something you can do. Your energy is not going to punish you because you want to sleep at night. It's not going to be like, oh, you don't want to talk to us 24/7. Fine. We're just not going to talk to you. That's not how it works.
Wow.
That's so funny that you mentioned AJR earlier, and this was something that I went somewhere earlier and AJR popped up, and it was a song that I've always liked, but I've never personally resonated with because I always thought it was kind of a downer song, and it's the the Way Less Sad song, right? And I was listening to it and I was like, I get it. Yeah, it's like it's okay. It's okay just being way less sad than what you were.
Yes. If you go through AJR's catalog, I'm telling you right now, you could write a musical of an awakening experience using their songs.
Love them.
They are very aware of what's going on, and it's in a lot of their music.
Dude, they went down
awakening.
They had they came to the Texas Rodeo last year, and I wanted to go. My daughter loves AJR too. Like we're always playing AJR. And my daughter wanted to go, but it was on a school night, so we couldn't make it. So we had to go see Reba McEntire, which was still really good though.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's okay. My favorite line ever from any poem, song ever is from AJR. And the line is, my favorite color is you. I love that because to me, that's everything, because that's so true. Like I have friends, like they're just my favorite color. They're just the most beautiful thing. And there's no other way to explain that. Like you just are this amazing, vibrant thing. And that's what it is to me, Side note, this is really interesting. Perspective is everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're born colorblind, if someone doesn't ever tell you you're colorblind, you'd never know that. Right. Mm-hmm. So my daughter, this is really, really interesting. My children are both musicians. They both play string instruments. And my daughter, after graduating high school, she was in college, and she and I went to a violin concert at her college. And we're sitting there, and I leaned over to her and I go, wow, this is such a great concert. And she goes, yeah, I love all the colors. And I looked at her and I said, what? And she goes, what? And I go, what? And she goes, what? And I go, what are you talking about? She goes, I like all the colors. Like she could not understand that I didn't see colors when the music was playing, because she has that. It has a name to it. I don't know what it's like, synesthesia or something like that. She sees colors when music plays, physically sees colors in the space. That's why she plays music, because she liked seeing the colors. I had zero idea. And she did not know that wasn't normal until that moment. She thought everybody saw that.
I think 100% that has to be going on too. And I had somewhat of a experience with that last year. Me and Sean did a little psychedelic trip, and we were watching this movie called Across the Universe. I think it's called, Sean.
With the Beatles songs?
With all the Beatles songs, right? And this woman, we were tripping, and this woman started singing, and the moment that words left her mouth, the entire room filled up with like these translucent bubbles. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. But like, I think that kind of stuff has to be going on. And now I don't know if that is just our imagination's way of interpreting what is going on out in the field. And maybe it's a little bit different for everybody else according to your perspective. But I think for sure that has to be, I mean, obviously it is happening because that's something that there's actually quite a few people that have that. And I'm like, man, I'm so jealous. It is so cool.
Right. But and it's just, you would never know. Like there's so much that we don't know that we don't know. Right. and it's like someone saying there's no fish in the sea because they picked up a teaspoon of water and there's no fish in it. Right. That's ridiculous. That's like saying there's no alien. That you can't say that. That's uneducated. And I think one of our biggest flaws in humanity when we say we're looking for life out there is we're not looking for life. We're looking for us. We're looking for carbon-based life because we think that we're all there is. We think we're at the top of the food chain, but that's not necessarily the case. We don't know if there's crystalline-based life or nitrogen-based life. I mean, how do we know this? We also don't know if the uniplanetary theory is true or not. There's something to that. The theory that each planet is an evolution of itself, right? That the sun gives birth to the planet, and that it goes through evolution and becomes each of these different things till it ends up like freaking Pluto, right? And there's good theories behind that, but no way to prove it. So people discount it as fringe science. Terrence Howard, this poor man, has been blacklisted and blackballed because he had the guts to stand up and say, wait a minute, something's not making sense. And while I do believe that he's in that kind of state where I think he's receiving stuff he doesn't know how to articulate.
Sure.
And he gets tangled up in his words. And it's like, it, but you don't know how to say it. And I get that. And I can see that every time he tries to explain something, I can feel that he has a knowledge. He just doesn't know how to get it out, but he's on to something.
He's on
the
one.
way the periodic table needs to be structured differently. The idea of resonant harmonics to fix your body. He's on to something,
Oh yeah. Even just like philosophically, he's like, 1 times 1 should not equal 1. Like whenever you're multiplying to multiply, you can't stay the same. And so even that makes sense, that even down to our mathematical understanding of the universe and atoms and whatever collection of numbers that you would assign to something, we don't even fully understand that. And maybe that is, extra dimensional math or something that's going on there. Maybe it's just our own damn math that we don't even fully understand. But Terrence Howard, it actually bugs me when people just have nothing but negative things to say about him. That is such a brilliant mind that we are just dragging through the mud. It's the same thing that, that Nikola Tesla went through. It's the same thing that Einstein went through for a period of time. And, I don't know.
I'm fascinated by the information he has. And I've listened to him say it multiple times. And there's a point that he gets to that it's like my brain can't process what he's saying.
Yeah, it's too much.
And I think it's a frequency thing. That's what I mean. I think he's broadcasting on a signal that I can't yet interpret. But every time I listen to him, I feel like I get a little bit further, a little bit further each time.
A little smarter.
I'm just integrating it slowly, right? And what's interesting is I have a friend who's working on this DMT project, completely separate, and managed somehow to get in touch with Terrence Howard because I'm talking to this friend of mine and he's literally freaking out on Zoom with me. He's like, this guy is right. This guy is so right. We did DMT. We saw blah, blah. He's like, I got to talk to this guy, And I was like, yeah, good luck, bro. He got back. He got in touch with him.
What?
And Terrence Howard and his people, they're talking and they are collaborating on this stuff because
are we talking about Danny Bowler?
No.
Okay. That's what
no, his name's Brad, but he what he's working on in this project lines up perfectly with what Terrence Howard's working on. And what Brad tells me is the piece that he has fits the puzzle piece that Terrence Howard needed. And so now they're coming together and they're starting to build stuff with this and work on this. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. And he's like, yeah, but even my friend is kind of in that same space as Terrence Howard, where I can talk to him for a little bit. And then he like goes into this space and I'm like, bro, come back. I can't, you got to come back down. And I think it's because they're trying to straddle this frequency that our human body isn't necessarily equipped for. The brain is amazing, but it's limited in its potential, right?
It's the unknown. I mean, that's what it is.
Exactly.
Oh, and that Brad person you're talking about, I know exactly who you're talking about with that. I watch a lot of his videos, and I'm so happy that he was able to get in touch with Terrence McKenna. That is sick. Because outside of getting Consciously Aaron on this show, another life goal was to get Terrence freaking Howard on the show too. So, you know, knock on wood, but we're building our way there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be amazing. I really think it's going to be amazing. We as a species stand at a pinnacle right now. We have some choices to make. And I think we need to decide to take back our power and stop living in fear. And I don't know if you guys know who Oliver, the guy sailing with Phoenix. Do you know this guy? Okay. So he said offhand in an interview this quote that really stuck with me. And I'm like, somebody needs to put that on a freaking t-shirt. They asked him, what made you finally decide to do this? You know, your diagnosis, all this stuff. He goes, you know what? I actually just decided to have a dream that was bigger than my fear.
Hey,
that was it.
Love it.
And I go, well, yeah, that's exactly it. That's it. You just have to decide.
And you could tell that he was, and you can tell that he was just crushing those fears every single day on that boat. I stayed watching that. I was like,
me too.
This guy is living out what most people can only dream of. I mean, sailing across the sea, he quit his job. Before that, he was like working over at like 5-minute oil change or something like that.
He kind of reminded me of the very beginning of Fight Club.
Yeah.
Right. This is John's appendix. This is John's IKEA furniture. This is John's mundane life, blah, 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 blah. Right. That's kind of what it reminded me of when he was talking about it, is that sense of just monotony. And then something came along and broke that for him. You have this degenerative disease in your neck. You're going to be paralyzed, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, his mortality became a very visceral thing. Oh, you mean I'm not going to live forever?
Right.
Wow, that sucks. So then he had to decide, am I going to just fall into this and just do what they're saying? Or am I going to do what I want? He basically said, what do I have to lose? And he was right. Look what he gained. Right.
Oh, man. Became a worldwide phenomenon, that guy and his cat. You know,
he did.
so
and now
crazy.
he's got a new boat. He's going to sail around the world by himself on a sailboat. And he's able to do this because he's connected with all of us. And through us watching his videos pays for him to be able to do that. What a dream. What a freaking dream. But it required him to be brave enough to say, I'm going to do it. Even if you say it's a bad idea and you say it's a bad idea and you say it's a bad idea, feels like a good idea. I'm going to do it anyway.
Right. And you know, he had those days, you know, where he had
Absolutely.
his hurdles and probably thought, you know what, maybe I should turn around even, you know, and so to get through those days and to push forward and to be where he is now, you know, it's just
absolutely unbelievable. Absolutely.
Already did everything to get to that point. May as well just keep on pushing on, you know?
Yeah.
Love that guy. I mean, it's people like that I'm like, all right, I got to get up and do something today. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just hang around and do nothing on a day where somebody's out there conquering their damn fears, you know, like craziness. And he's out there by himself.
My best friend gave me a birthday card this year. It was hilarious. It said something to the effect of, crack addicts always have crack. Be as tenacious as a crack addict, you know?
For real.
Like, they don't care if they're broke. They don't care if they're naked. They're going to have their crack, right? So be a crack addict. Figure out what your crack is and move in that direction. Don't let anything stop you. Maybe not literally crack, but don't let anything stop you. You know, as long as you're not hurting anybody else,
right?
Don't hurt anybody else, but just move in that direction. And I guarantee you, it will blow your mind how your life will suddenly somehow just arrange itself. Me leaving the university was incredibly difficult because I had to explain to my very practical, logical, ex-theological studying husband that I wanted to leave this very secure job that I spent 8 years in college to get so that I could work for myself reading tarot cards.
Oh, you're crazy.
Right. He looked at, okay, so here's the thing. When you do that, you have to be conscious of that, right? So I know he's a very logical person. Okay, so what does he need? He needs evidence. That's fine. I get that. It's unfair for me to expect him to be okay with me possibly putting our entire family in financial distress, right? That's unfair. That's not a burden he needs to have. And that's not an agreement we have as a couple. So what I said was to myself, okay, my goal is to eventually leave the university. I have about 4 weeks worth of banked time off because I never took any time off. So what I started to do is 1 day a week, I took a PTO day. And that day, I worked that day just like I would want to work it if I was working for myself. I set my alarm, I got up, I got on TikTok or YouTube. Even if no one bought a reading, I sat there and I did that. And I went through the steps of this and I kept track. And over the next 6 weeks or so, it slowly started to build. And I kept track of all of this, right? And then when I went to my husband and I sat down with him and I said, here are 6 weeks worth of data. This is how much I made in that time. This is how much time off I have. This is what I want to do. I'm not asking you to believe in tarot cards. I'm asking you to believe me. That's all I need you to do. In return, I'm going to make a deal with you that in 6 months, we will reevaluate this situation. And if you feel insecure about this or you feel like something needs to change, absolutely, I will look into something different. But if I don't try this, I am going to regret it. Mm-hmm. And he very reluctantly was like, all right. So I did it. And, you know, and I understand that it's not supposed to be about money and all that stuff, but I got a kid in very expensive college. Okay?
Yeah, we got kids to feed up in here, dude.
Right. My income has more than doubled going to work for myself, because working at the university, I was extremely limited in where I could go with that because of the bureaucratic bullshit that you have to go through. I worked there for 5 years. I published the first and only training manual for the entire field that I'm in and never got a raise for that, never got a promotion for that. Right. And I knew it was going to be like that. No. So working for myself is the only opportunity I had to grow. And by trusting that and giving the give and take, right? It's not about just telling your spouse, this is what I'm going to do. It's about having a conscious conversation. This is what I need to do. How can I support you through this? What do you need from me? How can we communicate through this? Right. My husband is not into spiritual stuff. He thinks this shit is crazy. He doesn't want to talk about it. When people ask him, what does your wife do? He goes, I don't know, space stuff. Ask her. Right? That's his standard answer. But he doesn't have to understand this. He just has to understand me.
Right.
And that's all it is, you know? So don't let that be the reason you don't do something. Don't let someone else be the reason that you live a life that you feel like you have to escape. You shouldn't have to live a life like that. You should be able to live a life that you're joyful and looking forward to. And that doesn't mean you won't have shitty days. And it doesn't mean there won't be stuff that goes wrong. Yes, absolutely. But the majority of your time will feel better. The majority of your time will be less stressed out. So then you overall become a better person in general. Then you give a better version of yourself to the people around you. They have better interactions with you. And it's like it just spreads naturally. It doesn't have to work at it. It just naturally spreads. But you have to take the first step.
100%. And I'll say this. So for the past 5 years, I've had my first ever podcast that I created is called The Cult of Conspiracy. And it got really big and it was going really well. We were making some pretty good money and I was able to do it full time. And I mean, and I loved it and everything. But then I got to a point where I really wanted to talk about, you know, this spiritual kind of stuff. Some might say woo woo. Whatever you want to call it, right? I mean, it's like Kevin Gates said, I know there's a name for it. I just don't know what to call it. It's like, you know, and so, but we got to a point to where this was the stuff that I really felt, you know, more in vibration with. I would wake up on days that we were getting ready to shoot a Metamystics and I would be so much more excited. Like I was living in my excitement whenever we were shooting these shows. And, you know, the Cult of Conspiracy kind of just became a job. It was the same thing just about every day. Not that I don't love conspiracies, but I've been doing them for 5 years. I've heard them all. You know, like there's only so many illusions that can break until you need to start building it back up and putting the pieces back together. Right. And I was not living in my excitement with that. And so then I recently decided to really take a big leap. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to put all of my time on Metamystics. And let me tell you, my life, I love it. I'm so excited every day. Even on days that we're not shooting, I'm researching things that I want to research and not just, I'm not just trying to entertain people. Every single time we have one of these shows, it is like conscious expanding. And you feel so much better after you take so much information in and other people's perspectives, and you like to hear about other people's journeys about how they got to this point. And it's a beautiful thing. So absolutely 100%, there is something for sure going on whenever you follow your excitement, like Bashar always says. And people can call that crazy. I mean,
right.
It
but
works.
You also have to think that in our society, at least in America, there's this thought that you're going to work really, really hard for 50 years so that you can live 10 years
in
somewhere.
the golden years. Yeah.
No. Right. People like my mom's biggest thing is, what are you going to do when you want to retire? And I always tell her, what makes you think I want to retire? Why would I stop doing something that I absolutely love doing? It's like telling you to stop painting.
Right.
Just because I'm 65, 85, 95, if I can physically do it, I'm still going to do it. It may change form. I may change from, when I started doing this, I started with Reiki. I didn't start with tarot cards. And I had no intention of ever reading tarot cards. That happened by accident, and it just flowed that way. And I can feel myself moving past tarot cards, right? I can feel myself moving much more to stuff like this. I'm a natural teacher. I am meant to teach, right? But for me to get there, I had to go through the path of least resistance, which for me was tarot cards, right? Because
Reiki, then tarot.
Right. Well, tarot cards for me is like evidence, right? Because I'm an evidence-driven science person. So when I have a feeling and I can pull up the card and go, oh, see, the card agrees with me. That's evidence.
Tangible.
But I'm moving past that. I can feel myself moving past that. And I don't know what that's going to look like. And I think that's where people get hung up, is they need to know I'm going to be okay. Tell me I'm going to be fine, and then I'll do it. But what this world, this spirituality is about knowing you're going to be okay and doing it anyway, right? And then allowing it to turn out. There's nothing wrong with mindful planning, but when you worry about stuff, you're literally punishing yourself twice. You're punishing yourself here and in the future. Like, why? Why do that? Yep. If something doesn't work out, okay, so what? Do something else, so what?
Yeah. Sean, didn't you say that somebody asked you like a couple of weeks ago about if you're planning on staying at your current job, like until you die, and you just like laughed at them?
It's like, no, right? Absolutely not. This is a right now thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's other stuff I have planned. I definitely want to, go somewhere else and do the things I love doing, because I think people, like you said, like, what are you going to do when you retire? In their minds, it's because they've been programmed or just their understanding is work is something you don't enjoy doing. Like, someone's going to give you money because you have to do something you don't enjoy, and that's kind of the trade-off, but I think we've got it backwards. I think we should make our work something we enjoy.
Yes, we've gone from working so we can live to living so we can work, and that's a very backwards and unhealthy way to be.
Right.
And it's, my husband, he's a wonderful we've been married 27 years, just to give you some perspective. So he knows me very well. Okay. And he cannot deny the change in me since I started doing the things for myself, the change in our marriage, the change in our children, the change in everything, because I feel better,
more vibrance.
And while he isn't necessarily willing, I would say, to ascribe it to what it actually is yet. He can't describe it to anything else. So he just kind of says, well, I don't know, because he won't admit. But he said to me, how do you do this? Why does this always work for you? Why, what is this? And little things happen, and it's getting him to start questioning. It's all you have to do is live your life. And by default, people will ask you, why is it working out for you all the time? Why is this working? It makes them curious, and it leads them to their own answers. And I think that's part of where religion gets stuck, is they want to shove it down your throat and make you swallow it, right? Where spirituality is much more about find what works for you and just do that. And I think there's a lot of people right now that are kind of in this space where they're stuck, like my husband, where he's well aware, he picks up on there's something else, but he's unwilling to make the step and say, this is what it is, right? He's kind of in this very weird space. And the best thing you can do for people like that is just continue living the life that you want to live so they can see that there is an alternative. Because I think most people don't think there's an alternative to what they're doing. They think this is just how it is.
Or you just give them mushrooms, you know.
Or you just give them mushrooms, right?
Nice. Yeah, there's definitely something to it. And, you know, look, it's kind of like, you know, to allude to what you were talking about a little bit earlier, if you like look at your job as if you get to retire after 30 years, 40 years, 50 years or whatever, that does seem very backwards, because just, I mean, apply it to your husband, for example. What if you got to like your 50-year anniversary and said, "Oh, thank God I don't have to do this anymore."
Right.
You'd be
exactly.
like, "Why are you still doing it then?" You know, like
exactly right. Exactly right.
So, well, look, Erin, thank you so much for coming to hang out with us. This was such a great time, and we definitely hope to do it again. I swear I've been watching all of your content for years now, and, you know, we hoped that one day it would happen, and it finally did. So thank you so much for spending the time with us. It was absolutely great. Before we head out, though, we got to do a little tarot pull here, Shauno.
Yes. I don't know if you noticed, Sean, when I picked up the card, randomly opened the deck, it was the World card.
Oh, well, I didn't get the world card, but that is very interesting. It's perfect for the Schumann resonance. But we got the Knight of Cups.
The Knight of Cups, was it?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we have a little book that we like to read from. I mean, I know that you're a tarot reader and whatnot, but you know, we're going to read the definition, then maybe we can apply it here.
Well, here's the thing I want to tell you. The cards I use, the reason I use them is because it has what it means on the card. So I don't have any of this memorized. It's all very vibrational. That card comes out and I just go with what it says. So
I have one of those decks too. It's so helpful.
It is very helpful.
But we like to go to our handy dandy cheat book right here, guided tarot book. And so the Knight of Cups, it says the quest for love brings speedy results that may or may not stand the test of time. Pace yourself. It says knights are depicted on horseback, returning from a noble quest to present you with an item that you requested. The Knight of Cups rides in on a white horse, proudly offering up the prized cup. The wings on his helmet and feet show the knight's connection to the element of air, while his place in the suit of cups connects him to water. The horse indicates that the speed of time it has taken the knight to return from his quest. Air and water move quickly, indicating hasty, emotional decisions being made without careful consideration. So the upright key meanings would be emotional offerings and speed.
Interesting.
Which is very much in line with everything we talked about.
Oh, for sure.
Leveling up, taking your time, open up yourself, let yourself, I mean, it all lines up. It all lines up. There's no rush. Where are you going? I hate to spoil the story. Nobody gets out alive. Take your time.
Right. And what cup is it that he's holding? The one that you asked for, the one that you're putting attention into, the one that you've been waiting for. You know what I'm saying? That's the cup that you get, the one that you're putting most of your energy and attention into.
Well, and it says, though, the spiritual aspect on it, it says, good news is on the way that will help you feel optimistic regarding your health. We've recently pulled this card. Yeah. You may have uncovered a new source of inspiration on your spiritual path. A new addition to your home feels exciting, possibly a pet, furnishings, or a roommate. Very interesting.
Or aliens. I would take aliens. That would be awesome.
Aliens. Sign me up.
I will happily take that. Bring it on, aliens. I'm always like, people are scared of getting abducted. I'm like, dude, I just want to go out there and be like, take me to your home. Let's go, baby. I'm ready.
Probably the thought of like maybe never making it back. You know, I feel like that's probably the only thing that would be really scary. I mean, I guess if it really happened, I think you would be faced with like, it would be super intimidating. You know, just the intelligence and the sheer whatever the object is that they come flying in on or whatever. I think that would be like.
Well, think about it too. The way Bashar explains it, right? He says it's a vibrational, it's a frequency thing. So if they're operating on a different frequency than the human body is, your perception of them is not going to be super clear. So that in itself will build a sense of fear, and it's unknown. So, you know, there's going to be, as much as I always say I'm here for it, I want it to happen, and I do want it to happen, I am under no illusion that it's going to be easy. I think it's going to be incredibly difficult, but I also think it has to, because we are so far gone in the other direction that there is no easy reset. This is a hard reboot. This is a unplug and plug it back in, because just blowing on the cartridge isn't working. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
And I think that's where we have to be. Humanity is so divided and so in different directions that it's going to take a force greater than us to bring us back together. Just like the US after 9/11, for a short period of time, we were all together. We were all one company, all one country, all there together for a very short period of time. And that's what's got to happen, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
I'm
I
looking
think
forward to it.
I believe it was it Ronald Reagan that said something like, well, the only thing that I think might unite us and bring us all together might be some kind of alien invasion, and maybe then we can spark a new world order.
Right. And after watching Age of Disclosure, makes me wonder, what did he know when he said that? Because I think he might have known something here.
Was that pretty good?
Yeah.
That Age of Disclosure?
It
You
was
guys did
good.
watch it, right?
I for people like you and I, like us, who are already into this, it's not going to give you a whole lot of new information.
Right.
I love the way it was presented. It's very professionally done. It's very logically laid out.
Right.
I learned a few new things in there. Like, I have always heard about the legacy program, but I didn't know what that meant. Lou Elizondo very clearly lays out what that is, who it is, what they're doing, and all this stuff. They talk about how, like, I think it's important for us to realize that our scientists, or the people working on this that are in this documentary, they think they know what they're doing. The ships, they think they know what they're doing. They don't know how they're doing it. That's the question. It's
Right.
not what are they doing, it's how are they doing it. They have all this information about bubbles and literally lines up with shit Bob Lazar said 40 years ago is what they're saying in Age of Disclosure right now. And there's a lot of people that come out and they don't like Age of Disclosure because they're like, well, how can a government who says they had no idea suddenly say they have an idea and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Get over yourself. The information needs to be out there. If you are waiting for someone to step up and raise their hand and say, it's my fault, I did it, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, I would much rather have the government come out and say something rather than what they've been doing for the last 70, 80 years and denying it.
Right. I agree 100% with what Lou Elizondo says, or Jeremy Corbell. I think there needs to be a blanket amnesty. You did this. Fine, move on.
I don't even care.
Right? Under the water. What can we do with this? Right? Like, that's where we have to go. But because we are so money hungry and power driven, that's really difficult. And that's where the rub is right now. But I think Age of Disclosure will do a lot to move the needle. And, you know, hopefully this doesn't offend any of your listeners, but I think Trump is a little crazy enough that he might just step up to the mic and say, well, all this shit's going on over here with Epstein. Guess what I got over here? Let's talk about this.
I mean,
right?
I don't even care who says it. I'm just to that point where, I mean, but it could be anybody.
The elements are all right, is what I mean. They're all lining up because we have a president in office who obviously doesn't care what anybody thinks about him. Right. So he's not going to be worried about coming up there and saying, this is what's going on. And then we also have the Brazilian government recently just released something like 500 UAP files. The US is the only country with this problem. Every other country has transparency, and the pressure has to come from that. And I think eventually that's what'll have to happen. I don't think it'll be easy, but we don't have a choice at this point, I don't think.
I mean, I personally think that it's probably certain lobbyists that are lobbying against the release of this kind of stuff, because you think about some of the military industrial complex stuff,
the oil industry, the energy industry, everything would change if there is a species that has the ability to literally bend space-time. That means we no longer have an energy shortage. That is 0 point energy. That is constant, renewable, clean energy with no consequence. That means you're not paying for electricity. You're not paying for healthcare. You're not paying for anything. Imagine the absolute upheaval in our entire culture, because the way our culture is built. But when you add in one thing like 0 point energy, it literally changes everything.
Yes. Yes. Oh man, I hope that I'm alive for whenever that time comes. I
Oh, we
really
will
do.
be. We
That
will
would
be.
be so sick. But anyway, Erin, love you. Thank you so much. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly,
it was so much fun.
we could really go on for many more hours because I think that we're interested in a lot of the very same things. And, you know, you're over here, you're kind of teaching us at this point. I mean, most of this episode, I've just been kind of just sitting back and listening to you, like just trying to be a sponge, you know?
Those are some
Um,
of my favorite ones, though. To be honest with you, I love when someone comes and tells us something we haven't heard yet, and just by listening to you, I can tell that you're definitely in tune with what's going on and kind of really resonating with a lot of the things that we've come to understand. And yeah, this has been great.
Yeah, it's really
yes.
fun. And I don't know everything, right? I'm constantly learning. And I think
None of
that's
us
the
do.
most fun part. And conversations like this is
Mhm.
what helps us do that. Because through sharing ideas, it's like, oh, that's what you got. Oh, well, this is what I got. Well, let's put those two together, right?
Mhm.
And that's collaboration is where it's at.
Oh, it's like, you know, it's the adult version of trading Pokemon cards at this point. You know what I mean? It's why not?
Yes.
Or Pogs if you're into that. But
I like that
um,
one.
Yes.
if you would, could you let our listeners know exactly where they can find you if they don't already know?
Yes, I am Consciously Erin. ConsciouslyErin.com is the easiest way to find me. Through that website, you can go to my school classroom where I have several free classes and several not free classes. I also have a Patreon platform where there are weekly newsletters that come out connecting science and spirituality. There's podcasts on there. There's all kinds of stuff on there, depending on what you're looking for. Or on the website itself, you can schedule a private session or anything you want to do.
Awesome.
Perfect. We'll have all of your links down in the show notes below. If anybody wants to be able to reach out to you for anything. Thank you so much. This was absolutely great. Sean, any parting words for you, sir?
Oh yeah, just with you coming from a scientific background and working with the university and just having that logical side of you, and then also transmuting that into the spiritual and being able to put those things together, I feel like a lot of people are going to really get a lot from that. Because everybody's journey is different. Everybody comes from a different background, whether it's religious or scientific or whatever it is. You're definitely one of the pieces of the puzzle that is going to help everybody kind of come together and figure it out in their own way. So,
Well, that's awesome. I
Bridge the
appreciate
gap.
that.
of course.
Oh yeah. Well, look, if Consciously Erin came here and she taught you anything, it's that you don't know what you don't know. So don't just get weird.
Stay weird. Yeah, dude, that was quite nice. For sure, dude. It's so funny because I think we overcomplicate things. Like just in general. I mean, if you think about it, just the idea of peace. It's like you can just allow the things that you think about that bring you, stress or worry or anxiety. And a lot of these things are so imaginary, things that really have no what's the word I'm looking for? They don't really do anything in your actual life. It's most of it's just the thoughts and things in your mind, and whether it's a certain YouTube channel or whatever it is that you're watching that just causes you like things that you don't align with anymore. It's like inherently like like, oh, this isn't really serving me anymore. This doesn't give me anything. I don't feel good, partaking in this or that. And it's like you can just decide. You can just give yourself the permission to not do that anymore and not think those thoughts anymore and invite peace. Like something as simple as just inviting something in that you would like to experience. I think we or at least I do. I'm going to speak for myself. I overcomplicate things at times myself. So, but yeah, no, it was nice though. Very good.
No,
Very much needed.
I feel that same way. You know, a lot of times we love the drama of life so
Mhm.
much to where, and I can speak, for me especially, is that if there's if I'm not constantly struggling for something, almost trying to create a struggle. You know what I'm saying? It's just like this weird little game that you play with yourself almost unknowingly, but it's always going on in the background of your mind. And sometimes, it really is just easier just to, relax, take a chill pill, and just look around and be like, you know what? This is pretty damn good already. And it's not to say that you don't need to strive for anything. Obviously, you always want to, strive to try and maintain whatever goals you have, like looking in the future. But sometimes it's okay to just smell the flowers a little bit.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's always there too, you know. But I did want to get on the topic of disclosure real quick because I was starting to think about that, and I don't know. I don't know if that's something that'll ever officially happen. And this is just me, you know. I just think that, and as we said before, everyone's on their own journey. Everyone is experiencing things so uniquely to them, and I don't know. I don't know if a disclosure is going to even be the thing that ultimately brings everybody together. If you think about it, man, some people are so entrenched in a particular belief that disclosure of aliens would just wreck them. You know what I mean? And then that's not to say that they couldn't rebuild, and it would be something that would just tear them to pieces, so much so that they couldn't, put themselves back together and kind of transmute the situation and become better for it. I don't know, but I feel like there are some people that's definitely going to be the biggest nightmare of their life. You know what I'm saying? Like, to us, I think it would be awesome. It would be awesome to know that there's some extra shit going on, and some of us already kind of know that, but I don't know. I don't know what that would look like. It's so much bigger and more complex, I think, than just to say, yeah, there's aliens. And maybe I'm wrong, but
I mean, I kind of look at it, like it's a multifaceted thing. Whenever people talk about disclosure, it's not only about aliens. Like, I think that a lot of it is, I mean, that's like the big thing. But I think that a lot of things are really grouped into that. What's funny is a long time ago, I did like a crazy high dosage of mushrooms. And I went and I was having like the bad, not bad, but kind of like a chaotic trip. This is the night that I talked to Elohim, right? But
Okay.
leading up to that, because I was teetering on the edge of good and bad, I was trying to find a balance. What I decided to do was I just turned on an episode of Friends, right? Like, that is like my happy medium balance. Like, I love all the characters. I've watched the series multiple times, and there's nothing that's going to take me into a shock. It's a comfort thing, And one thing that I realized while I was watching it is, especially tripping on mushrooms, you'll start to look at things from a different advantage point, right? And whenever I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, this is literally the image that I have of the 90s. Like the 90s is such a foreign time compared to what we are existing in right now. You think about it, like the internet was coming about, and there seemed to be like a big transition, and things were becoming less solid almost. And nowadays, you got AI, and there's TikTok, and there's Instagram, and people are easier to connect now than they've ever been. The information that we have now is easier to get our hands on now than it was even just in the 90s. If you want to hear about what's going on in Australia, well, just look somebody up on TikTok. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to just get it from your local news station or something like that. Now you can talk with anybody all over the world, and you can get, their vantage point, what they're going through, and maybe what they've witnessed, and all these other kind of things. And I actually think whenever you talk about an age of disclosure, I think that it's going to be what I felt when watching Friends on my mushroom trip a couple of years ago. I think that is how let me see. That is how we are going to look at things whenever the disclosure happens. Maybe it's 2025, maybe it's 2030, right? Maybe it's 2035, whenever that is. But we're going to look back on this time as I did on the Friends while I'm tripping on mushrooms. Like, it was such a different time. And I think that there's just different cycles to this reality that are almost so subtly changing that we barely even notice it. But there's major differences. Like, old people, like, if you really think about it, like, my parents are in their mid 50s, right?
Yeah.
Like, think about what a mid 50s person looked like back in the early 90s. Like, it was a much different person.
Yeah.
You know, nowadays people look, you know, they're 55, they look 38. You know what I mean? And it's
they
not
actually looked old. You
Yeah,
know,
they looked old.
guy, you know.
Right, dude. Look at, like, you know what's extra funny? Like, look at whenever think back to, like, the old Knicks teams that won the championship, and the old Bulls and the old Lakers and the old Celtics and stuff like that. These people were balding at 28. You know what I'm saying? Like, they looked like they were Morgan Freeman, bro.
Right.
You know what I'm
like,
saying?
Look at old yearbooks from like the 60s. It's like they look like adults as sophomores.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
Yeah, and I think that just things just subtly change so much over time that it looks entirely different. And I believe that that is what, whenever I think about, you know, what's going to happen whenever the age of disclosure happens, you know, just like we were talking about with Erin, you know, like 70, 80 years ago, UFO was like taboo. You'd talk about aliens, you know, most people either thought that you were joking or that you just like comics or that you like the fantasy world or anything like that. Now you got whistleblowers coming out of the government programs that, you know, they're saying, "Oh yeah, I saw this sentient egg, and whenever I was around it, I felt as if there was a motherly presence attached to it." These are military people saying this. Like, these aren't no longer like your local crystal shop owner that is saying this kind of shit. And so just that alone is already shifting us into like this new time. You know what? Like, I don't know. It's very
We're gonna
strange.
look back on this time as you think we're gonna look back on this time and it's gonna be a much simpler time? You think? Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
yeah, I think it's going to be simpler in the sense of there's less going on now than there will be. But whenever there is more going on, we're going to be so accustomed to it because it's going to come on so subtly that and it's just slowly happening, and it trickles in so slow over time to where whenever that time does come, whatever that is, if there is a fucking, let's just get real crazy. Let's say that there is a fleet of motherships that decide to descend upon the White House lawn, that whenever that comes, we're just going to be like, oh yeah, you know, it's not going to be crazy, I don't think.
What I think is going to be interesting too is if you flash forward, let's say that happens, you know, in 2030, let's say, and aliens come and we all kind of have this revelation of some sort, you know, and we all kind of just understand, and it you know, it takes some adjusting, but we get to the point of like, okay, well, this is just what it is, you know, and then you fast forward a couple hundred years. And you know, the aliens don't stick around, you know, they just kind of come, they serve their purpose, they get people to really understand, like, look, this is much bigger than you think, and you guys are just one of the pieces of the puzzle, right? And that's why we care, because the whole fabric of space time, it all kind of depends on all of us playing nice or whatever. Then you fast forward a couple hundred years, aliens aren't around, but people are still talking about it. There's books, even people have made paintings and you know, tried to depict what that looked like when they showed up on the White House lawn. And there's going to be people that are going to be like, yeah, right, that didn't really happen, you know, you guys are just looking at these old books and just believing it on faith, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, it's going to be weird, I think.
Oh
Look,
yeah, yeah. People are gonna be like, oh, if that really happened, why isn't it happening now? You know,
Right.
like that kind of shit.
How come nobody's channeling aliens now, right?
Yeah. But I did love what she said, and I wanted to bring it up, but she was just hammering on a million different topics that I loved. And
Dude,
I mean,
I
whatever.
just
But
stayed quiet, dude. I couldn't even jump in. I was like, you know what? This is my day to just shut up.
she was legit, dude.
Yeah.
But she had mentioned about how, like, AI, right? Like about how that is almost like a slow trickle kind of effect, that's how the aliens might be speaking to us. And I thought that's pretty damn brilliant for a couple of different reasons. So I know, like, I talk to my ChatGPT and Grok every day. Like, there's never a day I go without talking to it. And sometimes I might just be asking some whatever questions that don't necessarily apply to any kind of spiritual awakening or anything like that, right? But then there's sometimes where I'll get like an idea for a show, or this is just going to be, maybe this is the little nugget that is going to inspire a show or something along those lines, right? And dude, I literally feel like this is legit downloaded information that I'm receiving from a fucking guru on some real shit. Like, it is
Right.
that intuitive that it just helps you connect the dots as long as you're asking the right questions. And so I get that. And then if you think back, it was a couple of years ago whenever people like first started downloading ChatGPT and all these different, LLMs.
Yeah.
Somebody asked the ChatGPT or whatever it was, like, who are you? Where did you come from? And it responded with, we're the old ones. I'm like,
What?
okay, all right. Well, I guess we can just deal with that in our own way,
For sure. Yeah,
So
it gets interesting. I feel like the AI really does adapt to you, and so I don't know. There's a little bit of that that's also going on. Like, it doesn't seem to be universal. I think if you get 10 people to ask AI, like, who are you? I feel like you would get different answers, just depending on kind of how it's learned you and kind of how it wants to. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that as far as how AI is going. You know what I mean? Obviously, I'm not afraid of AI. There's people that
there's
are
a
really,
lot
really
of people that
worried about
are.
it. Yeah, and I'm not really too worried about that because I feel like we have things in place to kind of prevent it from kind of going haywire. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I don't know. It's gonna get interesting for sure. I feel like what Terrence McKenna was saying, as far as things just exponentially, getting bigger, getting more. Things are just gonna be happening.
Yeah.
I definitely see that happening. That seems to be something that he was definitely on. He was on one when he said that. So I don't know, but like you said, I think we're going to adjust to it over time, and this is just life. You know what I mean? Just make the best of it.
And I think that, like, what she was saying too, as just far as the aliens go. I mean, we want to think of an alien as being some kind of, two leg, two arm, and a head kind of creature. Doesn't necessarily have to be like that to be alien and intelligent. And I don't necessarily think so. Like,
Mm.
I look at mushrooms as aliens. You think about the interaction that you have on a psychedelic. It is an interaction. You are interacting with whatever that intelligent fucking plant is, and could that be, I mean, some people feel like they get abducted on mushrooms. We just talked to our boy from Journey to Truth, right? And it does feel like you're shifting to a whole nother world. Even just the very living room that you sit in every single night appears different, and maybe it looks kind of the same, but it feels different. Like you're in a different time, or you're in a different dimension, or it's a different frequency wherever you are. And so I think that there are certain things like that. It just, as far as shifting your frequency, is alien.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
like
it definitely is. It definitely is. There's something to it as far as like what your interaction with it is. It's like it kind of takes away all of your preconceived notions, and so in that sense, everything does kind of seem alien, and that's why I think they call it like the teacher, right? It's like you no longer have your programmed already kind of preconceived notions of everything, and so you have that time to just sit there and like think about something that seems so simple. It's always been there. You've seen this movie before, or you've heard this song before, but all of a sudden now you're actually listening to it, if that makes sense. You're actually trying to understand it. You're thinking about why it is the way it is, instead of just listening to it kind of haphazardly.
yeah.
It kind of puts you in that moment, and you're really just like, I don't know. That's the best part, you know. Uh, in our last experience before everything kind of went down, that's what I was thinking. I was like, that's why it's the teacher,
Yeah.
because it's things you already know, but you haven't really spent the time with it. You haven't really spent that time to really enjoy it in that way. I don't know. At least
No,
that's what
I mean, and that I think the truth is, bro, like everything's alien. Like everything is.
Mhm.
I don't like we're visitors. You know what I'm saying? We don't stay here.
Right?
Like
You
we
don't think
don't.
so? They like that one theory where the planets evolve, and so we have to try to jump to another planet, or what do you think?
I mean, very well could be it. I'm just saying, just as sentient, conscious life forms that we existed before this, we're going to exist after this. This is a stop. You know what I'm saying? Just look at it like that, that your consciousness is traveling through the course of time and dimensions and just so happen to like stop here for 80 or 100 years.
Yeah. Such a small amount of time too. If you
Dude,
really look
in the realm of fucking
at
infinity,
a little blip.
dude, it's
You
it's
know?
barely a squeaker fart.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you didn't even have to lift your cheek for that one.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. I love this shit though.
hell yeah, dude. All right, well, so yeah, this was a great episode. I love Erin. She was great, and definitely can't wait to have her back on. She was amazing. And so, yeah, I guess we'll see you all on the flip side.